All right, I believe we are live. There wasn't the normal delay that I normally see, but it says the stream
No,
is going.
I hope
People in the
we're
chat, let
good
me
from
know
the
if we're live
start.
here.
Yeah, we like without the delay. There's no time to make that first mistake we always make.
Yeah, now instead there's this mistake of being like, are we live? Are we not live? I don't know.
I think it's better when I'm coming in halfway through a sentence.
All right, well, let's
Hell,
pretend like I'm about to press the button in 5 seconds. So it's
okay.
coming, Brian. I'm about to press it.
Okay. Well, Elon, congratulations on.
And we're live. Okay.
Oh, uh, I think it's worth.
Yeah,
Can
Matthew
we
says we're
brag
live.
now? We don't have to not anti-jinx, right? Like
Oh,
it's a
yeah, no,
done
it's
deal.
over. It's
Elon is the Cupful Ultimate Champion. It happened.
honestly, guys, it wasn't even that hard.
I know for a fact that's not true. And how sweaty Elon was all season long. Elon, how many nights on average a week did you wake up at 3 a.m. to make a player move? And follow-up question: what percentage of those were you at? This is for the reunion, actually. I should save it. What percentage of those did you get like sniped on?
Okay. I would say it's not like times per week, right? It was probably like 4 or 5 times in the season.
That's not true. No
I'll have
way.
to. Kevin will have the data, right? We have every single ad
How
and
many
what time they
3 a.m. ads
happen.
you made? Yeah.
Yeah, maybe like 5 or 6 times. Like it definitely wasn't every week, but sometimes you needed it. And I definitely got sniped once in a while, but most of the time I was able to get who I wanted. So, which probably just means I could have just waited until the morning. But lucky for me, I'm like a easy sleeper. So I know some people it's not as easy. So I could just set my alarm, make my ad, and go back to sleep. So it's sort of like an advantage I have there. Obviously, Marcus, my opponent in the finals, had a bigger advantage of actually just being in Europe and not having to wake up at all. Just sit there and wait for the time to turn, and then make his ads for the next day. But yeah, that's a challenge of Cupful this year on Yahoo. We'll see if we change that next year if we go to like a platform where you can be more flexible with what time the clock turns. Or, but anyway, I don't know. Now I'm on a whole different tangent. But yeah, Brian, my ads today really I didn't need them in the end, but I grabbed Spencer Knight and Freddie Gaudreau. They both pointed for me. Gaudreau with four shots and an assist. Spencer Knight with a
Incredible.
huge win. It's just like everything I touched this week turned to gold. I also added Anton Forsberg at the beginning of the week, and he turned into
That
a
was huge.
huge MVP for me.
Yeah.
What am I counting? I'm counting here, like 26, 27 points. Then I
How
grabbed
many
Jordan
points did he get
Binnington.
you in the overtime loss last night?
Wasn't terrible. He got me a 5.10 couple points because he had 36 saves, 5 goals against. And that last goal against was scored by Mark Giordano, assisted by William
Yeah.
Nylander, two people
I
on my
was
team.
I was watching that and I wish I had written you like mentioning, to celebrate for you. But I was actually just really disappointed the Leafs won. So sorry.
I was actually watching with my father-in-law, and he was also really
Oh,
disappointed.
he
And
was
I was kind
probably
of like,
really bummed.
I was like, Giordano. Someone's like, Giordano, all right. Wasn't it Nylander who passed it to him? He's like, yes, it was. I was like, yeah.
I actually felt I felt something watching that game for the first time in a
What
long
did you
time. Watching
feel?
it, I feel like that the
Sadness.
Toronto Ottawa rivalry runs so deep, and it looked like a Toronto like it for a long time. It hasn't looked like a Toronto home game when Toronto has come, maybe because there haven't been fans in the stands, but like it's just like it just brought back some bad memories of from 15, 20 years ago.
Yeah. I mean,
And
right now,
it
I'd
just
feel
would have been
worse.
really thrilling to like have Ottawa win. I mean, like I could be like, well, like it's pretty pathetic that like Toronto needed overtime and didn't lead all game to beat Ottawa. Like, way to go, guys. But it was just like I really wanted it, especially that Jimmy Stu breakaway right at the end.
Yeah, it looked like it went in, or what was it? Like he pushed the pad into the net with his stick, so it
Yeah,
doesn't count. You can't do that,
the
Brian.
intent to blow, which I feel like was a rule that came out of an Ottawa Senators game. Like there was a goal that they were should have been credited for, they weren't, and then the NHL said like it doesn't matter when the whistle was blown, It's about the intent to blow.
No, but I mean, to be fair, that shouldn't have been a goal, right? Like the goalie clearly had the puck under his
But
pad, and then the player pushed the pad into the net.
Was it secure under the pad, or was it just like sitting kind of behind the pad?
Shouldn't be allowed to touch the goalie, right? I feel like as soon as you touch the goalie, if I was making the rules, I'd be like, you can't touch the goalie.
Did he hit the pad or did he hit the puck?
No, I think he hit the pad. He hit the whole goalie's whole leg went under the net. Anyway, I was saying the goalie was Shalgren. I know who it was. I was watching. Anyway, whatever, Brian. I mean, they got the overtime point, and right now I feel like Leafs fans are not getting any joy out of this, right? It's like they need to win a first round playoff series. Nothing else matters.
Yeah, it doesn't matter.
It's like cool to see them be good for the second season in a row, good at the end of the year. But we should save some of this content for the actual show, right?
We should. We probably should.
We should have been doing the show from the beginning here. You have to congratulate me all over again.
We wrecked it.
It's so awkward.
Why don't we let's do it like a patron cast? It's already started. The show has begun.
Oh my God.
I'm kidding. We're not going to do that.
I don't know if we're ready for that.
I don't think so.
Okay, let's just start. I'm going to start right now.
Yeah.
Best wishes to Mathieu on a speedy recovery to him and his family.
Sending you verbal best vibes. I hope everyone's okay.
Thoughts and prayers. Okay. Just kidding about that last thing. Okay.
Are you? Why?
I don't do thoughts.
It sounds like jokey.
It's corny.
It's corny and jokey.
Yeah, and I'm not a prayer. I'm not gonna lie.
You're not. Yeah. You might think, but you won't pray.
Yeah, I'll think.
Just say thoughts.
Thoughts. That's what you said, Brian. You said thoughts. Good vibes your way.
Good. Yeah.
Oh, John, congratulations. What division? I could look this up.
We have another couple champ in the house. Elon,
Mathieu also won, eh? Are you aware of that, Brian?
Oh yeah, Mathieu destroyed. Mathieu, you beat Brian, right? Who gave me a lot of trouble last year in tier 2. So it's a huge. So Mathieu, are you coming up to tier?
He's coming to tier 2
next year?
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah. All right. Well, John and Mathieu, 2 champs in the chat here. You can help correct us if we say anything wrong on the show, since you know what you're doing. Let's do this, Brian.
I think we should do it.
Yay! Yes! Welcome, everybody, to another episode of the Keeping Karlsson Fantasy Hockey Podcast, the best fantasy hockey podcast in the world, hosted by 2 people who are cupful Tier 1 Ultimate Champions, past and present. I'm your host, Yola Dabrowski, and with me, as always, to break down all of the news and notes leading into what could be, well, I guess what will be either the final matchup or the matchup after the final matchup for most of the people playing fantasy hockey. It's your good friend and mine, the neighborhood fantasy hockey robot himself, Brian Combe.
Hello, Elon. Hello, everybody. And I'm surprised you're actually not locking me into being contractually obligated to say hello, Cupful Ultimate Champion, but you already went ahead and crowned yourself before I even could. I'm not surprised. You didn't jump the gun. You deserve it. You worked so hard, Elon. Congratulations to you for being the newest Cupful Ultimate Champion. This is a big mountain you've climbed, and now you can join me in the Hall of Champions. It'll be really fun, and you'll try and prevent anyone else new from joining us next time. But we also have how many other Cupful champions about to be crowned tonight? We've got a couple in the chat right now. John, champ in tier 7, Mathieu, champ in tier 4, and we're gonna have the whole list probably only by next show once all the dust settles. But congratulations to everybody who won their couple divisions this year and your hard fought seasons. kkupfl.com for an out-of-date website tells you all you need to know about the Keeping Karlsson Ultimate Patron Fantasy League, which Elon is now a champion of. Elon, I hope you probably just want to get to the content.
No, we can talk about me.
Well, I wanted to do you justice. This has been like a life goal of yours for several years.
Yeah, it's a bucket list item for sure. My division was insane. It was a who's who of fantasy hockey, including my finals opponent, Mark, who everyone heard on last week's show. Mark's team was amazing, won the President's Trophy. I got lucky this week that one of Mark's best players during the regular season, Connor Hellebuck, totally fell apart for him, and I wasn't complaining. And now here we are. I'm the champ. And yeah, this week, by the way, my moves, Brian, mwah, I've never had such a good week. Like, my team was already good. Then, like we were talking before the show, I added Anton Forsberg on Tuesday for 3 gems. I thought for a second, should I not play him against the Leafs? Even against the Leafs, he let in 5 goals when he made so many saves. That was even fine. Then I added Binnington on Thursday when I saw that he was getting the start over Husso. I had Husso. I dropped Husso for Binnington since I was already going to have 2 goalies on Saturday. Figured might as well get the Binnington starts on Thursday, Sunday. Both gems right now. St. Louis is actually, the game's not even over, but they're winning 8-2 against Nashville. And like, Nashville's not a bad team, but somehow St. Louis is turning into the Florida Panthers here. A really scary team down the stretch. We'll talk about them obviously later in the show. And then today I had a couple ads left over. Grabbed Spencer Knight for a gem over the Red Wings, and Freddie Gaudreau, who's got an assist and 4 shots. Brian, I mean, come on. If people were already not thinking that this is a good podcast to listen to because it's hosted by people who know what they're doing this week, gotta say it all, right? I'm sorry, I'm basking too much. We can move on now. But I'm feeling really good, I gotta say. Fantasy hockey could be a lot of fun when it works out.
Yeah, and very crushing when it doesn't. So also, sending all our sympathies and condolences to anybody who fell out after a
Who was
hard
left in my
year.
wake.
Yeah.
Sorry.
Specifically in Elon's wake.
Sorry,
but generally,
Brandon.
everyone who deserved to win but didn't. We'll have to do our best excuses for losing episode at some point this offseason, where you, the listener, will tell us the ridiculous reason, the only reason you lost was because ... And then we'll rank how much you actually deserve to win or lose. That'll be a fun episode. But maybe we can do
that next week. We'll talk after the show.
We're definitely going to do it sometime in the near future. So keep an eye on our Twitter feed at Keeping Karlsson when we'll do a call out for those. Anyone who's lost already will also tribute you at the end of the show, and won already. Same deal. But Elon, some people are still, we're talking about champions and losers, but some people are in leagues where that is yet to be determined. We've got a couple weeks left of NHL action and fantasy hockey play, even though like a couple ended this week. It's, believe it or not, it's not the only league in the world. So why don't we get to how people can focus and lock in and win their leagues with the games that are remaining in the rest of the season?
Sounds like a good plan. Unfortunately, like, in the excitement of my winning, I just deleted the show doc. I was like, I don't need this anymore, and I got rid of everything. So I'm just kidding. I've got a list of players that I think are going to be interesting for these last 2 weeks of action. Obviously, people who are still playing your leagues, the reason why we stopped our league after this week is because things might get a little wonky with teams, resting players once they've clinched. So there's a lot of strategy that goes into playing these last couple of weeks, but they are NHL games, and it definitely makes sense that to want to play through them. I always every year wonder if we should have the couple go to the end or not. I feel like there's pros and cons. But anyways, yeah, we've got a list of players, and I think we're going to try our best to give you some tips to use, because there's also like some big injuries and outjuries that you're going to have to work your way around. Of course, before we get to everything, I'll just mention super quick that Keeping Karlsson very proudly presented by the ultimate champ of fantasy hockey websites, DobberHockey.com. It's the best. Everyone knows it. I wouldn't have won it if Dobber Hockey didn't exist, or maybe I would have, because also my opponents wouldn't have had access to it. But if you're playing in a league where everyone is using it and you're not doing it right. They've got great articles, keeping up to speed with everything, frozen tools, the best tools website out there. It's all there, DobberHockey.com. But okay, Brian, let's get into it. Let's talk about some of these injuries and then some outjuries. Let's start with some goalie injuries that are really going to mess things up for some people. Tristan Jarry is injured right now for the Penguins. Sorry, one sec. I just injured for the Penguins. He's week to week with a lower body injury, and that's going into, like, it's bad for the Penguins because they were obviously expecting to ride him going into their playoffs, and obviously bad for anyone who has him in fantasy because who knows if he'll be back even in time for game 1 for the Penguins. In the meantime, of course, Casey DeSmith takes over. He got in the net for the game yesterday against Boston, and he did okay, right? Boston won 2-1. He led in 2 early goals and settled down, stopped 27 of 29 in the loss. So, I mean, DeSmith has been decent this season, right? 907 save percentage, not like world beating, but not terrible. There's a lot of worse backups out there. Pittsburgh's a pretty good team. So I got to imagine, I mean, we're going to run through a few of these goalies that you need to win over these next couple of weeks, right?
Just gonna I think you had like a couple internet glitches. I'm good, but I just want you to know that this might be something we're contending with.
Yeah, well,
So
Just try.
yeah, so I didn't get to hear your question.
I just was basically like, DeSmith is probably pretty
That's
appealing
him.
at this point, right?
Yeah. Okay. DeSmith is definitely pretty appealing, although he's not so reliable, which is, something people were saying about Tristan Jarry coming out of, remember last year in the playoffs, he was the scapegoat, the total scapegoat, and actually pretty deservedly. He had a really awful, catastrophic playoffs to the point that Pittsburgh was ready, at least the fans were, to say goodbye to Tristan Jarry forever. And it was unfortunately a really awful way to end what had been a pretty good season for Tristan Jarry. And he's bounced back this year in honestly a pretty big way. You look at his numbers, 919 save percentage. He's started 56 games. That's right up there with some of the biggest workhorses in the league. 63% quality start percentage, which is really solid. And now he's gone. Yeah, his expected save percentage numbers, like he was playing actually just a little bit above them. Pittsburgh defends their crease and net pretty well, which hopefully bodes well for Casey DeSmith, who has not performed up to his expected save percentage this season. He's got a 907 this year in 20 starts compared to a 912 last season in 17 starts. We see a lot of inconsistency from him, but no inconsistency like this year, where Casey DeSmith is just a 45% quality starter, to the point that early on in the season, through his first several appearances, Casey DeSmith was someone who was like, is this guy done in the NHL? Like, I remember the Penguins were trying to rest Jarry, and Casey DeSmith came in, and I can't remember exactly what game it was and how many he let up, but he came in and just laid such an egg. And I was watching Penguins beat writers on Twitter wonder aloud, like, is this the end of Casey DeSmith's career? And that sort of was the story of his first couple months of the year through to January. DeSmith had appeared in 9 games and put up an 886 save percentage. Since then, he's righted the ship pretty well. 922 save percentage over DeSmith's last 13 appearances, and that goes back to basically the All-Star break. So the second half, Casey DeSmith, like, it's almost it's not quite the Petr Mrazek story, because Mrazek hasn't fully come in and redeemed himself after having his career on death's door. But Casey DeSmith he's looking pretty good. He's actually only won 5 of 11 decisions, but 4 of those were overtime losses. So we can just chalk those up to bad luck or 3-on-3 or shootouts. We can't really hang most of those on a goalie, but I'm pretty impressed by what we've seen from Casey DeSmith lately. And if he's available in your leagues for the next couple of weeks, he's going to be the guy. Pittsburgh does not have anybody else ready.
Do you know who it is, Brian? Do you know who they called up?
I was actually looking it up as I talked.
He played a game earlier this season, and I think it went well. It's Louis Domingue, our old friend.
Yeah. I was going to say Martin Skula, but I guess it's been a while since he's been in the lineup. So Louis Domingue is in the picture. I don't even remember how the Pens acquired him. Because remember, the Pens were rumored to be shopping for a goalie at the deadline. There was talk of Marc-Andre Fleury. And I wonder, obviously, you can't predict your goalie getting injured. But the Penguins, honestly, it might be good. This gives Tristan Jarry a bit of a forced break. This might be good for the Penguins as a hockey team, getting Jarry some rest going into the playoffs, but it's not good for fantasy managers who have been relying on Jarry all the way through. So if you go out and get DeSmith. I don't think Domingue is an NHL goalie, so I don't think he poses much of a challenge. And I think the Pens know that they're going to probably want DeSmith ready to go for the first round of the playoffs. So he'll get a lot of time, and he's somebody who you're going to want on your team, especially because Pittsburgh is playing reasonably good defense and supporting their goalies quite well.
Yeah, so Pittsburgh next week plays Boston on Thursday, actually. So they don't play for a while. So, but at the same time, it's tricky because you don't want to wait and not get the goalie. So if you wanted to jump, you can get Casey DeSmith now. But yeah, you are going to be sitting on him just to wait for a difficult game against Boston. Then on the weekend, definitely if you get the chance, and he's still out there for Saturday, Sunday, they play Detroit and then Philadelphia. So those are 2 easier games. And then also Pittsburgh, I'm just bringing it up here. The next week, they go only 2 times. So I don't know. While it is a good spot to be in, you're not going to potentially get too many games, because probably Domingue plays one of those weekend games this week. So depending on your situation, even though it's like a tasty backup that's now going to get a starter's role, obviously you have to take that into account as well.
For sure. So definitely play your cards carefully, because you want to get the right number of games. And goaltending, I mean, we were actually talking on a Discord server before I go any further, by the way, I need to mention I confused Martin Skula with Peter Skudra. So Peter Skudra, the legendary Penguins goalie. Elon's shaking his head like it doesn't matter.
I got a lot of players to get to, Brian.
Yeah, okay.
Where are we going with this?
Well, we were just talking on our Discord server about how many goalies who have gotten their managers this far, and like their managers have leaned on these goalies to get them this far. Like Mark was leaning on Hellebuck all season long in your finals, and then he couldn't get a good performance out of him in the actual finals. About half the goalies who carried teams to the finals are breaking down right now. So honestly, it's your guess as good as anyone's about which goalie is going to succeed or perform. So I wouldn't necessarily grab Casey DeSmith if you're losing games played, because you might just be able to roll the dice with somebody else. But if you're looking for guaranteed starts while Jari's out, he's your guy.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, I got very lucky in Cacuffle. There's a lot of luck that goes into it, but it's fun to brag and be like, I'm so smart because I'm the Cacuffle Ultimate Champion. But obviously, I got lucky. And one of the things I got lucky with was in the auction draft. And you could go back and listen to it. I bid on some goalies and got outbid. My plan wasn't to spend a lot of money on goalies, right? And I ended up getting Darcy Kemper for whatever it was, $15, $16. I remember a specific moment in the auction draft episode where I was like chatting with you. Then all of a sudden I was like, wait, I think I just got Kemper. Okay, cool. I guess he's my goalie. And then he actually stunk for a while at the start of the year. But yeah, he's been really great lately, and I just got lucky. Like, I obviously would have preferred Hellebuck in the draft, but it turned out that Kemper was a lot more valuable than Hellebuck this past week. So what are you going to do with goalies? I think the advice that I gave on a previous show, and I also mentioned on the Discord, is I think if you have a goalie that's doing really, really well in fantasy and you're up to your trade deadline, I'm at the point now where I'd say trade that goalie for like a stud skater. For like a Jake Gensel or a Kyle Connor. Like, obviously it depends like how good the goalie's doing, but even like if you have Shesterkin this year, it would have been probably better to just trade him for a stud skater, because there's no guarantees of what's going to happen with your goalies, and you could probably find Antti Ranta, for example, in free agency. And now if you're going into your finals, all of a sudden he may be a starter as well, because Frederik Andersen is going to get an MRI to determine the extent of a lower body injury that he suffered in Saturday's game against Colorado. So much like Casey DeSmith, we've got Antti Ranta, and Antti Ranta is someone who I think is potentially better than DeSmith when he's healthy. He's been good pretty much his whole career, and this year's hasn't really been an exception. He has a .913 save percentage in 24 games. The performance against Colorado was just 4 saves right at the end of the game, but hey, that's a lot better than, that was a brutal game for Frederik Andersen. He led in 7 goals before he ended up getting pulled for this injury. So Carolina is a pretty good team, though lately they haven't been scoring so many goals. They got shut out by Nedeljkovic. They got, they beat the Rangers. Okay, so anyway, all that to say, and that was also Nedeljkovic just having a really great game. It's not like Carolina didn't take any shots, but I think that probably even more so than Casey DeSmith, I'd probably be into Antti Ranta. If you look at Carolina's schedule, they play starting on Monday against Arizona. That's a gimme right there. Arizona is terrible, right? Since Clayton Keller went down, that team has just fallen apart completely. So I assume that at the very least, Ranta's going to be playing on Monday against Arizona, and then we'll see what happens when they get the MRA results for the rest of the week. But yeah, jump on Antti Ranta. I probably should have put him first before Casey DeSmith.
Yeah, he's probably the more valuable player based on his track record and his schedule. And Ranta, we sang his praises a few weeks ago on the show, saying that this has been a career year for Antti Ranta. Like, if you look at what he's done over the course of his career in terms of playing above his expected save percentage, which he often does. Like, Antti Ranta has been a really good goalie. I guess if you listened a few weeks ago, this might sound very familiar, but he's just never stayed healthy long enough to lock it in. Like, he's had in his career, he's played 9 seasons. In all of those years, he's played at least 12 games. And aside from his very first year in the league, he's had a 919 or higher in like 5 of those 8 seasons. So like, this is a really good goalie who's never stayed healthy long enough to play in a starter's role. And the one year he did play in a starter's role, which was for Arizona about 5 years ago, 930 save percentage, 70% quality starts, which was the second year in a row that Ranta had posted a 70% quality start number. So this guy's reliable. He's outstanding. And he's finally staying healthy. Touch wood, everybody somewhere, please, to show it. So in his own numbers, he's showing career highs in the NHL. Actually, if you look at all goalies and you sort them by how well they're playing relative to their expected save percentage at 5-on-5, which is the measure I use to try and just determine goalie talent, Antti Ranta leads the league. Yes, he doesn't have as many minutes played as the guys below him, like Shesterkin, Demko, Sorokin, Husso, Anderson, also Freddie Anderson. So Carolina doing very well in net this year. it's always bad when you lose a top 10 goalie, but it's great if you have the number one goalie in the league in this metric, hopefully ready to step in. So go ahead and grab Antti Raanta. Of course, the danger with a Carolina goalie is the same as it ever was, which is that, it just takes 1 or 2 goals on 20 to 25 shots to make a dent in their save percentage. But Ranta's been really solid this year, 60% quality starts, 913 save percentage, which makes him not look as good as I think he has been, but he is definitely somebody I would want over Casey DeSmith and basically ahead of, I think, just about any goalie that's out there right now.
I mean, for as long as Frederik Andersen is out, I'll take Raanta over Connor Hellebuck pretty easily. Winnipeg seems to be doing pretty terribly, and he's not helping them. So yeah, he jumps up the rankings, especially with that Monday game against Arizona. I'm like tripping over myself to add him in a league if I'm going into a finals next week. Okay, so since we're on Carolina, I'll mention another injury, Jordan Staal, which you may be like, why even bring up Jordan Staal? He's so boring. Fine, he's injured, but doesn't have fantasy relevance. Well, it does. He has 6 points in his last 4 games. He's been scoring. He had a hat trick against Anaheim. He had 2 goals in his game against Colorado. But yeah, it looks like he's hurt. The latest on NBC Sports Edge, he suffered an upper body injury when he was hit hard by Cale Makar. What a goon. Makar, I didn't see the play, but Jordan Stahl's day-to-day, so that's a bummer. I guess if you were riding that hot streak, it's probably a shame that you're not going to be able to get that game against Arizona on Monday, because that would be pretty sweet. He's day-to-day, right? He might play, but you'll stash him in IR. And 2 players that you probably won't be rushing to grab potentially, unless Brian tells you that you should, are 2 guys on a cold streak. Vincent Trocheck, what happened to this guy all of a sudden? He's pointless in his last 4 games, and then fine, before that he had a goal against the Islanders, and then before that he was pointless in 5 games. So Vincent Trocheck, who was having a pretty solid year up until this recent stretch, is all of a sudden like ice cold. And, you can't blame it only on deployment. He was still on the top power play in that last game. He was playing on a line with Tara Vinen and Max Domi. Remember that Max Domi went there?
Carolina Hurricane Max Domi.
Yeah. So, I mean, Trocheck's deployment has been good, but he's totally disappeared. Then, like, for your deeper league, someone who I guess people probably should have already given up on, but I just can't believe how badly things have gone for him, is Martin Necas, who has now no points in his last 10 games. He's fallen to less than a half point per game pace. This is the guy who paced for 63 points last season, and Martin Necas now is like a nothing. Like, when I see him in free agency this year, I like, over this past month, I've just like scrolled past, like he's just like some nobody, like Jordan Martinook is like how I think of Martin Necas. So Trocheck and Necas really letting people down. Necas probably was already dumped by anyone serious, but Trocheck is probably someone that they need some maybe nudging from the fantasy hockey robot. Brian, can people let go of this guy at this point going into their finals? It's a good schedule next week, but he's doing nothing.
Really disappointing that Necas has fallen off this way. He's on a 40-point pace this season, down from that really exciting 63-point pace that you mentioned last year, Elon. One thing that's really been a bummer is, like, we were looking for this year for Necas to get improved deployment or at least hold steady and saying, like, okay, look, he might not do any better, but he should be able to do the same thing. And he's actually losing minutes lately. Like, he's averaging now, I don't know, like 15 minutes a game or so, which is worse than last year's 17 minutes a game and worse than he was seeing earlier this season, which was 16 minutes a game. And Necas and Trocheck, they did well together last year. At least Necas benefited from that arrangement. But lately, they're not playing with each other a whole ton. And I wonder if that might be something. Like, yeah, Necas is playing with Martinook and Jesperi Kotkaniemi, which is essentially the 4th line, except Carolina's kind of running 3 third lines right now, if I'm just trying to gauge who's who. But yeah, there's not a lot of sunshine for what Necas is doing. It'd be great if he could go on a run like Jordan Staal did. Like, that run from Staal is crazy. And he's suddenly shooting. Yeah,
like, definitely.
He's amazing. You don't want to talk about him too much.
Oh, sorry. No, sorry. I just wanted to respond. Well, I was also going to interrupt, so I guess either way would have been rude. But like, yeah, Necas, I feel like you want him to be good, but I feel like like I said, I think we've all given up on him. I think the real one that I'm just so curious to get your take on is Trocheck, right? Because he's someone that's like actually been useful for most of the season, and then just how does he just disappear like this?
Yeah, well, the good news is he's still hitting, for anyone that helps. He's still taking faceoffs, and the shots are still there. Like, yeah, he only has 1 assist in his last 10 games, but I can tell you he has, like, 16, 17 shots in that span, which isn't great, like we would like to see him. Actually, sorry, I'm just doing the math again, about 23 shots over his last 10 games, which isn't quite as many as we'd like to see from Trocheck, but it's about what we can expect this year, a couple shots a game. For reference, Jordan Staal scored 8 times on his last 16 shots, which is why he's been as hot as he has been. So maybe Trocheck would benefit from going on this kind of run that Stahl has. But his power play time is healthy. His time on ice is relatively healthy. I think you just got to hang on and hope, because he's not being buried the same way that Martin Necas seems to be. It just hasn't worked out. But I would hold on with this good schedule for Vincent Trocheck, assuming that it is a step down to someone Necas-like as a free agent replacement.
Yeah, I agree with you. And for those of you in leagues where someone else gave up on Trocheck, I'm going to say that he's probably a good ad. Obviously, it's like easy for us to just recommend players on hot streaks. We're going to go through a whole bunch of players on hot streaks at the end of the show. But yeah, I think maybe maybe Brian, as we go through them, we could compare them to Trocheck if he's in free agency also. But sometimes you want to grab the player who's due, and Trocheck's in a good spot, like you're saying, is still taking some shots. And I do like that Monday game, at least against Arizona. Then Thursday against Hellebuck and the Jets. And then Saturday against the Devils. And then Sunday against the Islanders. That's already like 3 out of those 4 games are against really weak defensive teams. So that's a pretty good ad if you want to get Trocheck, or maybe even like a Nate. Well, I don't want to recommend Necas, but Carolina in general has a good schedule.
Yeah, and Necas is a good long shot if you're just looking, the same way that you'd add like Josh Bailey or Anthony Beauvillier for a good Islanders schedule. Maybe actually Necas isn't quite as good an option as they've been, but like same ballpark.
Yeah, and I guess to talk about one yeah, and I guess on the other side of the coin, to talk about a player on Carolina who's doing surprisingly well, or maybe at this point it's not as much of a surprise, but Brady Shea on yet another hot streak, right? 4 points in his last 4 games after an assist against Colorado. So, we don't need to dig into him, but just if you want to keep up with who's hot in Carolina right now, that's not like an obvious person who's rostered everywhere. Brady Shea is a name that you can consider. But let's go to another goalie injury now. In Boston, Linus Ullmark is hurt, and there was a point in the season where Ullmark had sort of ceded the net to Swayman, but recently Ullmark had been getting the bulk of the starts, and clearly, well, no, it's probably unrelated, but like now he's hurt. And if you recall last year on Buffalo, it took forever for Ullmark to get healthy. Like he rarely was. So I wonder if the trick was to keep him as like a backup, or like, 1/3, like 2/5 of the games. But yeah, now he has an upper body injury. He didn't play on Saturday against Pittsburgh. He's day to day. He took a shot to the helmet. So obviously this has nothing to do with being injury prone or anything. But in the meantime, Jeremy Swayman then will likely get the bulk in all of the games. And he had a really good game against Pittsburgh in that game that we talked about where in that game we just talked about that Casey DeSmith played. On the other side, it was Swayman, and he was awesome. He stopped 23 of 24. Before that, he had 3 really bad games in a row and had been really stinking, and I guess that's why Ullmark was getting the starts. So now Swayman gets all the opportunity in the world until Ullmark is better to right the ship. So if we look at Boston's schedule coming up over the next short term, they've got a really tough one, right? They got St. Louis, then Pittsburgh, then the Rangers for Tuesday, Thursday, Saturday, then Montreal on Sunday, who maybe Ullmark will be back by then. So I would be a little scared to grab Swayman, but at the same time, Boston's a good team. So it's probably a bit of a coin flip. If I'm ranking these guys, I've still got Ronta first over Swayman if both are available.
Yeah, I agree. I might go with Swayman over DeSmith, although the results lately have been flipped. I talked about how strong DeSmith has been lately. Swayman over his last 10, 892 save percentage. Now, Swayman has still been good enough this season that he still has a 917 on the season and a 66% quality start. So still a solid guy, and I'm curious to see what he'll do now that the torch is in his hand. But he's not a slam dunk. So I think I'd still for sure take Ronta first. Then it could be a toss-up. Like if you lose out on DeSmith, go get Swayman. If you lose out on Swayman, you can go get DeSmith. I feel like they're probably about equally appealing.
Okay, and I'll just point this out. I don't want to freak anybody out because it's only been a couple games of this, but Charlie McAvoy looks like, according to Frozen Tools, he was on the second power play in that game on Saturday, and Matt Grishlik was getting more power play time. McAvoy also is pointless in his last 3 games. He's taken a lot of shots, but I definitely don't like seeing 39% of the power play share for that game for him. So we'll have to see if that becomes a normal thing or if, that was just like a aberration. But anyway, anyway, what are you going to do? You're not going to drop, Charlie McAvoy at this point in the season. But maybe if this continues, you take a look at like a Grishlik as a potential
Yeah.
stream.
Well, the game before against us, so you're talking about the game against Pittsburgh. The game before against Ottawa, Grishlik also saw a higher percentage of the power play time. A lot of power plays for Boston. Like McAvoy still saw 4 minutes, but Grishlik saw 5 on the power play. So that is something to keep an eye on. And like you said, Elon, you're not going to drop McAvoy, but you could very well go and say, hey, I'm going to go add Matt Grishlik, who himself is cold and he's not shooting or filling any categories as much as McAvoy is. So he's definitely a distant second in my mind to McAvoy still. But if you've got a D spot to fill on a busy night coming up, you could probably do worse.
Yeah, and then I guess one more injury I'll bring up for now is on Vancouver. Rough break for them because Bo Horvat is going to be out for at least a couple weeks. Then he'll be reassessed, which I guess means he's out for the season. I think it doesn't say exactly that on NBC Sports Edge. I guess this was written a few days ago, but yeah, it's not looking like Horvat's going to be helping any of his fantasy managers for the rest of the season, which is a bummer, of course. Looking at the lines from Vancouver's last game, they were running Pettersson with Connor Garland and someone named Sheldon Dries. And then JT Miller was playing with Alex Chiasson and Vasily Podkolzin. I feel like Chiasson always gets on our podcast. And like
Somehow.
he's hot. He's got 9 points in his last 5 games. Like Alex Chiasson, I hate to do it because I know, Brian, you're so excited to just swat away Alex Chiasson as soon as I bring him up. But clearly with Horvat out, he's got a more prominent role. He's playing with JT Miller and he's crushing it, right? He's been taking a ton of shots. He's got, like I said, 9 points, like a lot of those goals, 5 goals in his last 4 games. He had 2 goals against the Coyotes. I don't know how much you want to count goals against the Coyotes recently, but he also scored 2 goals. Oh, actually, his previous 2-goal game was also against the Coyotes the previous week. And then he has a goal against San Jose. Who's out. So, okay, we'll see how Chiasson does against stronger teams.
Chiasson has 4 goals on 8 shots against Arizona. But I'm still going to shout him out. Like this actually looks like you're right. I usually do poo-poo Alex Chiasson pretty quickly, but I don't see much to poo-poo lately. Like this is a pretty exciting run. He's on 5 goals on his last 20 shots, which is like, 25% success rate, but that's not as absurd as Jordan Staal's 50% success rate lately. Plus Chiasson's getting top power play time. Saw over 7 minutes on the power play against San Jose, 5 minutes in the Canucks last game on the power play against Arizona. 3 power play points he's put together from all that power play time. And it's very strange. I can think of maybe back at the start of Chiasson's career. I feel like that's the only time he's been shooting as much as he has lately, putting up 4 shots a game over his last 5. So he's actually if his schedule works out for you, a pretty appealing guy to roster, playing with JT Miller at even strength on the power play at 5-on-5. On the top power play unit and just bombing away putting shots on net like I swear he hasn't in close to a decade. So Alex Chiasson, this is probably, Elon, the most excited I've been about him or any 30-point player. Like Chiasson's been a 30-point player the last 3 years, but this is the most excited I've been about him or anybody of his stature from a small run, because there's a lot of really good indicators here if you can make him work for your schedule.
Well, definitely. I think you will be able to, right? Because while last week Vancouver had the worst schedule of the week, playing only Tuesday, Thursday, coming up, they play Monday, Tuesday, Thursday, Saturday. So you get 2 games right off the bat. Tuesday's a somewhat busy day, but not too crazy. 10 games on that day. Yeah, we got Dallas and then Ottawa. So might as well, if he's going to be on the top power play with Horvat out, yeah, I'll be surprised if you see a more appealing option, especially if you're in a deeper league. Brian, Chiasson or Vincent Trocheck for next week? Both play 4 times. Chiasson is a lot hotter. It's not even close, but Trocheck obviously is better on the season overall.
That's a really tough question because Trocheck, it's like, well, at least he's going to get you a couple shots. In a bangers league, I will lean Trocheck, but Trocheck's only getting you a couple shots a game these days. I honestly... Man, like this is hard to say out loud, and I'm curious what your take is, but I'm gonna put my neck out there first. I'm gonna say, I think I'd go Chiasson.
Yeah, you know what? This is the playoffs, man. You got to play short term. You got to play cutthroat. Yeah, like we said, Trocheck might be appealing, but Chiasson in the spot he's in is looking good. It would be a tough. I would try to drop someone else, or if they're both available, I'd try to maybe get both because they both have a good schedule next week. Maybe I would lean keeping Trocheck for the Monday game against Arizona and then consider flipping after that. But yeah, just the fact that you're having this conversation makes it's pretty surprising, right?
Trocheck hasn't even been that great this season, right? 51-point pace. So even he's really cold lately, which has probably knocked him off of a 55-point pace. But even on a 55-point pace, you're still, what? That's 2 points every 3 games or so. So it's not world-beating performance, and of course you can't expect world-beating from Alex Chiasson. But even if the justification is that Vincent Trocheck is cold, so don't overreact and take Chiasson ahead of him, I'd say, well, even if Trocheck is not cold, he's still not doing something so exciting that you would overlook what Chiasson is doing. But I'm with you, Elon. If you can find a way to work with both, then work with both.
Yeah, I guess that's a bit of a easy answer to give. Like, just get both. But
yeah, I'm the one who picked one player. So you agree, Chiasson?
My pick would be to do Trocheck Monday and then swap. That's my pick.
Okay, me too.
Okay, good. So we're in agreement. We've given great advice here. So we've got a lot more advice to give on this episode. We're going to do, or maybe really quickly, I'll mention a couple late injuries. Austin Matthews is sitting out of today's game for the Leafs. Apparently it's minor, so probably not much to dig into here, except like really sucks for people who are like still in their cupful finals or fantasy finals that end today and they're in close matchups. Losing Matthews has got to be killer, including for my brother Joel, who's fighting for his life in Tier 3 Binghamton of the cupful. And then also Shams just mentioned that Patrick Laine is day to day. This is new news. So we'll see. I don't know. We don't have anything to say about that, but obviously that stinks again on a Sunday, losing your star player if you're in a close matchup. All we can say is we feel for you. But yeah, we're going to now get to some outjuries, which are fun, and then some hot and cold streaks to end the show. You're listening to Keeping Karlsson. And Brian, so we've got a HelloFresh that just came in under the wire.
Ooh,
so I'll
just under the wire. Are you do you want to just run your ad from last week?
No, I'll just say it. I don't know.
We're supposed to do it live. Okay, can you do I have a link?
I sent you a link. I sent you a link already.
Oh, that's what you sent me in the Discord?
Yeah, man.
Wow.
I'm a pro.
You are.
That's why I'm the champ.
Yeah, you're a well-oiled machine.
All right.
How does it feel to be the best in the world at something?
Yeah, I mean, I'm the best podcaster in the world. Thanks. All right.
Okay.
Let's do this. I'm the best HelloFresh ad reader. Okay.
Everything you do tonight, you're just gonna say you're the best.
Yeah, when we go to the bar after, I'll be the best chugger.
Okay. Is that what you want? Is that what you aspire to be?
Yeah, I want you and Joel to just yell chug, chug, chug. And I'll be like,
okay. At Montana's.
Everyone's invited, by the way. Montana's in Barhaven. If you want to come right after the show, after party. Okay.
Probably get a last-minute flight if you leave now.
All right.
To Barhaven from Central Ottawa.
So while... Hey, everybody.
Okay. Why don't you say you know what?
I got something.
How it feels to be the best fantasy hockey player in the world? Well, think about how it feels to eat from the best food box in the world.
Got it.
You've got
this
it.
Fan is going off. Can you hear this? I don't think I have control over this.
No, I can only hear my own fan.
Oh my god. It's like heating or cooling. Shut up.
Turn off the heat.
My temperature is fine. Okay, let's do
Freeze
this.
out,
All right.
freeze out the family.
Hey, everybody. Unfortunately, you're not going to be able to be the ultimate champion of the cupful this season. That doesn't mean that you won't be able to be the ultimate champion of your kitchen if you use our sponsor for this episode. And those are our friends over at HelloFresh, because they're sending you championship food boxes every week so that you can...
Championship food boxes.
So that you can... cook your way to ultimate dinner glory. That's right. You can skip your trips to the grocery store and count on HelloFresh to make home cooking easy, fun, and affordable. That's why it's America's #1 meal kit. All right, Brian and I have been getting these HelloFresh boxes. We live in different houses, actually. We both get our own separate boxes. When I get my box, I don't know about Brian, but I'm always super exciting. You heard Dina talk about it when she helped me do the ad a couple shows ago. And yeah, when the box comes, it's just like, oh yeah, we're eating well tonight. There's always something like super delicious. You could choose in advance, by the way. You can look through the menu, choose which meals are interesting for you. They have a bunch of different types of meals to fit what type of diet you have, vegetarian, all meat all the time, like family friendly. It's really great. And it's like super easy. You get these like fresh ingredients. You get these like cards that tell you exactly what to do. You have to be a real idiot to mess it up. Trust me, because I used to be very bad in the kitchen. I guess I probably still am, but you wouldn't know if you tried the food that I make from HelloFresh. I just pop on a podcast, listening to a Stream Scheme or to a Short Shifts or whatever, and then I just cook this meal. Next thing you know, a half hour later, I'm serving like a gourmet meal to my family. It's unbelievable. And guess what? You can do the same thing because this is an advertisement for a product. So obviously you can do the same thing if you give it a try. And if you're thinking, oh no, is it for me? Guess what? Risk-free, because we've got an offer for you if you've never used HelloFresh before. Brian, why don't you tell people about it?
If you hate risk, check out this offer. You can go to hellofresh.com/keepingk16 and use the code keepingk16 for up to 16 free meals and three free gifts. That's right. All you have to do, go to hellofresh.com/keepingk16, use that code, get 16 free meals and 3 free gifts so that you can try out without risk, without paying full price, America's #1 meal kit, HelloFresh. One more time, that's hellofresh.com/keepingk16 for 16 free meals and 3 free gifts.
Okay, now there's going to be another ad that goes, and then ad-free the rest of the way. Or people watching on YouTube don't even see ads. So
They saw that one.
Oh yeah, it's true. I don't know why I said that then. This heating is still on. So
Tell them to turn off the heat.
I'm not gonna run down and be like,
Probably warm enough.
Recording a show. All right. Let's do Carey Price now.
I think who is it? Panic Room, who always comments like maybe you'll need a blanket once the heat is turned off. You can bring it back.
Okay, Brian, we are back, and now let's get into some outjuries, some players that have finally come back to help their fantasy managers if it is not too late, starting in Montreal, where Carey Price made his long-awaited return to Les Habitants, and it didn't go that great against the Islanders. He started well, but then by the end of the game, he had let in a couple goals on only 19 shots against, and the Habs lost. I think they got shut out, right? Yeah, 3-0 to the Islanders, but hey, whatever. It's cool to see Carey Price back. He's one of the best in the world when he's at his 100%. We saw last year in the playoffs, and I saw a quote from Coach Marty St. Louis that like he's basically going to let Price play as many games as he wants for the rest of the season. So next week we've got Minnesota Tuesday, then Philly Thursday, then Ottawa and Boston Saturday, Sunday. So I'd imagine you're probably getting 3 of those games. Obviously there's some risk associated because maybe something goes wrong and he has to go back on the shelf. But again, we were talking before about some backup goalies you may be interested in. How would you compare? Like you can grab a Antti Ranta, or you can grab Carey Price. It seems like a no-brainer, but also Montreal's not the greatest team, and Carey Price has come off a long layoff. So I'm happy to see him back. Personally, I'd be kind of nervous to play him, but maybe that's not nice to say.
Why isn't it nice to say? I think it's just reasonable. Like, yeah, we're all rooting for Carey Price. We really are. Coming off like a challenging time in his life where he like stepped up and said like, hey, I need help. I'm going to go get help and I'm going to come back and it's going to be a heartwarming moment and beautiful. And it was. But if we need to like commit to the guy to put up numbers for us, I don't think anyone is expecting to make this a time that we're ready to do that. I think Montreal is going to give him all the minutes he can handle, especially with Jake Allen out. I mean, what, you're going to play Sam Montembeault over Carey Price? I don't think so, unless, Carey Price is hurt or being embarrassed some other way where it's just pointless for him to be in the net. He's not someone I'd want to rely on. And Elon, I would say actually normally, like you're like, oh, well, normally we'd say Carey Price over Antti Ranta. And I would say no to that for the last 5 years. I would actually prefer Antti Ranta in any of the last 5 seasons, essentially, over Carey Price. And I still feel that way now. So Carey Price, a candidate to see a whole bunch of pucks, even though he didn't see very many. He only saw 19 shots against in his first game. It was a decent performance from him, and it was good to see him back. And he picked up the win, of course. Oh, sorry. No, he didn't. It was good to see him back. But he only gave up 2 goals and he didn't get the win. So I feel like that's just another reason to not be into him, because wins are going to be hard to come by. And we don't know that we can rely on him to be up to speed, right? He basically has missed the entire season and a whole bunch of last 2. So we'll see what comes, but he's not somebody I would want to stake myself to as I try and win my fantasy championship.
Okay, next outjury. Let's go to St. Louis, who have just finished demolishing the Nashville Predators 8-3 today. And I want to talk about Torrey Krug, who made his way back to the lineup after missing a month or so. And he came back like crushing it in his first few games himself. He had a goal and assist against Boston, 2 assists against Buffalo, 1 assist against Minnesota. So you're probably asking yourself, man, I can't even imagine what kind of damage he did on 8 goals versus Nashville. Well, I'll tell you, it was no points and only 1 shot. He pulled a Braden point and totally let his managers down. But I guess they can't complain because at least he gave you a good week up until today. But man, it's so frustrating when you have a player and that team scores so many points and you get nothing. I had Rantanen earlier this week for a game when Colorado dropped 8 on someone and Rantanen had a single assist. But here, Krug didn't even do that. So then who did do well? Like, I guess Justin Falk, he had an assist. It was Calle Rosen. It was actually the defenseman you wanted today. It looks like 2 goals and an assist. Definitely wasn't expecting that. Obviously, the big star of the game, as usual lately, Vladimir Tarasenko, another goal and 2 assists. Holy cow. We'll talk about him in just a sec. But Brian, Torrey Krug, got to imagine he was back on the top power play. So even though he got no points, no brainer if he's available. Actually, it was only like 6 seconds of power play time. Looks like St. Louis didn't even have many power plays. And I'd imagine it's 6 seconds, meaning they scored and just maybe he didn't get in on it. Whatever. Krug, you probably want him if he's available because he's a top power play defenseman on a team that's able to score 8 goals.
Yeah, or time expired, like there was a 4-on-4, whatever, like something canceled out a power play that they had. I think the one thing I'll point out about Torrey Krug is that his ice time since coming back has not returned to normal. Before being injured, he was seeing 20 to 22 minutes a night. Since coming back, his first game back against Boston, he played 14 minutes. Like, okay, you can forgive the first game back from injury. Since then, he's played 17 minutes, 20 minutes, and 18 minutes. So I don't know if he's still easing back into things, and that's something to keep an eye on. The shots only really came in that Boston game, and I think he was fired up like emotionally for that game. I wonder if he actually pushed himself to come back because that was a big deal for him. But only 4 shots in Torrey Krug's last 3 games. So the points are coming. And this is coming from someone who, remember last show, Elon, we were talking about Justin Falk and Nick Leddy and how hot they were. And I was like, well, what's Torrey Krug's timeline? It didn't seem clear. I was like, maybe it'll change once Krug comes back. We weren't sure if he'd get back on the top unit. He has. Okay, so he's there. He's in a decent spot. But I'm not seeing a full return to the kind of numbers that I'd like to see from Torrey Krug in his shot counts or in his time on ice. But the points are there and the power play time is also there. So he's obviously an attractive guy if he was somehow dropped to toss into your lineup going forward. I would prefer him at this point, Elon. You tell me if I'm wrong. Like, you were so pumped about Justin Falk, who now has, after going pointless in 2 points in his last 2 games. Nick Leddy's been injured, but he'd been pointless for a few. But I think I'd still prefer Torrey Krug to both of them, even with these light concerns around his usage.
Yeah, it's probably close. Probably a coin flip. Like, I don't think it's like obvious. Like, for sure, Krug is going to be better than Falk. But yeah, I guess you probably want to go with the top power play guy. Falk has had like just an amazing season, though. He's up to 42 points in 70 games. That's almost a 50-point pace. So he is approaching potentially a career high. He's got 42 points overall. He once had 49 points in his season with Carolina. And that was when we were like, wow, this is Justin Falk. That was back in 2014-15 when we thought Falk was going to be like a future fantasy mainstay. I think I kept him in a league actually after that season. It turned out to not be too useful to me to do because after that he just declined and declined and declined. So nice to see him having kind of a bounce back season. But yeah, Krug is obviously good, and just in general, just with St. Louis scoring so many goals lately, how could you not want like anyone who's going to be on the ice for all of this offense that's like used in offensive capacity like Falk or Krug? But yeah, obviously the big pusher of this offense lately has been Vladimir Tarasenko. Like I said, another huge game today, and that is something that has become like not that rare. It's not surprising to see that he had 3 points today. He had 5 points in a game against Buffalo earlier this week in that game when Rob Thomas had 5 assists, but it was a hat trick for Tarasenko. He's actually scored now in 5 straight games, and one of those was a hat trick, one of those was 2 goals. Overall, he's up to 33 goals and 76 points in 69 games. Brian, it's so funny to me that Tarasenko was someone we debated about since we started keeping Karlsson, that at first we thought he was going to be this like superstar player, and then eventually you sort of convinced me, or you sort of hammered it home that like every year I'd be like, maybe this is the year that Tarasenko finally breaks out as like above point per game, and you were like, I think he's probably settled in pretty safely as like around a 75-ish point guy, which is good, but not, like first round good. And now this year, the year when everyone had kind of given up on him, the Kraken could have taken him in the expansion draft, and they passed. And now Tarasenko is having the year of his life. He's up to now 76 points in 69 games. It's a 90-point pace and climbing with the way he's putting up points in this last couple of weeks. 12 points in his last 5 games. That was going into today. So make that 15 points in his last 6 games. Oh my goodness. Vladimir Tarasenko. It's nothing really actionable we could say. Like, obviously, you want anyone playing with him, but they're probably all rostered as well. Buchnevich and Rob Thomas. They're just like making just such a fantastic line together. But woo-wee, he's going to be fun to try to predict for next year. Brian, I guess you won't be able to say anymore that this is just a 75-point guy because he's shown us that he has another gear.
Okay. Yeah. After years of being correct about him being a 75-point player, you're right. I will reevaluate because Vladimir Tarasenko is showing us a new gear of production that we've never seen from him before over this many games in a row. Look, I'm going to give you a pretty boring answer. I think one of the reasons why he's been so successful this year is that he has a career high shooting percentage this year. Tarasenko is shooting 17% compared to his career high before now in 2014-15, which was 13%. And keep in mind, that's not his average career shooting percentage. That's his career high shooting percentage before this one. Normally, I think we'd expect Vlad to be like in the 10, 11% range as a shooter, which would put him at about, well, he has 220 shots this year. So I would put him at 22 goals, which is 11 fewer than the 33 he has, which would put him to 65 points in 69 games, which, Elon, guess what pace that works out to?
What, 75?
Yeah, pretty much. Like, so Vladimir Tarasenko having himself a really great season in a way that I'm not sure is entirely sustainable. I mean, the guy's been on fire. He's also playing like not a lot of minutes this year, a career low well, I shouldn't say career low, low since his sophomore season back in 2013-14. Tarasenko has never seen fewer minutes than he has this season at 5-on-5. And yet, I mean, obviously this latest goal scoring binge he's been on with 8 goals on his last 13 shots in the last 5 games has really just vaulted him right up there. It's funny to be talking about how great St. Louis Blue Vladimir Tarasenko is doing, especially we talked about Tristan Jarry earlier. It's like, oh, the Penguins are really going to miss Tristan Jarry. Imagine saying these things like 6 to 8 months ago when both of these guys were totally on the outs with their organizations. So good on Tarasenko for having an amazing season, showing he's got a little something extra in the tank. I'm desperate to see if he can pull this off for another season because I'm not convinced that he has evolved from a 75-point player to a 90-point player. But it's great to see him doing a lot with less and, been a great, like, huge value in fantasy drafts. I'm sure he's on a lot of rosters that have made it far into the playoffs because if you have Tarasenko on your team, you did not pay capital to acquire him that is in line with a 90-point player. I'm sure of it.
Yeah, no, for sure. You got him late after you probably had other great picks with your earlier picks. So yeah, Tarasenko's probably going to be on a lot of championship teams. And like, it's probably not even anything about him for why his ice time is down, right? It's just St. Louis is just so deep. They run these 3 great lines. So
everyone's ice time is down in St. Louis. We've talked like they don't want to give anybody a showcase role. Like this is how they do it. It's hurt Ryan O'Reilly. It's hurt Braden Shen. We've talked about how it's impacted. So it's a good point, Elon. Like, and I don't mean to say Tarasenko's lost minutes. He's just not playing a lot. That's all.
Yeah, but when he does play, he's playing with Rob frickin' Thomas, who's dishing to him in a way that's making it easy for him to score 8 goals on 13 shots or whatever it is, because he's showing himself to be just this like elite playmaker, like a Henrik Sedin we're looking at in terms of like, not the most shots on goal, but he's getting you so many assists every day that even in your, leagues like the Cupful where just an assist a game is maybe not even worth rostering, but Rob Thomas is giving you a lot more than an assist per game. And yeah, he's been fantastic as well. But I guess we got to move move on from the St. Louis Blues and talk about another outry of a player that maybe you actually might be able to get in free agency. That's Andreas Athanasiou, a guy kind of like Alex Chiasson. I feel like we've been talking about him for years, and generally it's, actually, Brian, you used to be really into him. You thought he had big upside in Detroit. He sort of fizzled out there, but now he's in LA and he's like looking really good since he's come back from his latest injury. He was playing on a line in the last game with Kopitar and Kempe, so you can't do much better than that. And he's got 5 points in his last 4 games since coming back from injury. He was pointless against Columbus, but before that he had goals in 3 straight games. After his return, good number of shots. I like everything I'm seeing from Athanasiou in terms of just these box scores. LA plays 3 times next week on the busy days, so I guess it's tough to just recommend grabbing him for people who don't have room. But if you've got space to get him on Monday, if you've got space to get him on Tuesday versus Anaheim or Thursday versus Chicago or Saturday versus Anaheim, those are 3 games where I could see LA scoring some goals. And Athanasiou, like I said, is in a really good spot, and he might be someone you want to take a look at if you could fit him in your lineup.
Yeah, he's definitely above like the Nachas line of player that I'm looking to add. Athanasiou, like you said, Elon, is someone that I have shown interest in the past, but he's never been able to like hold good deployment because he has these huge defensive holes in his game. So it's great that he's playing up on the top line, and you're probably wondering, well, who did he displace? That's Alex Iafallo. So keep an eye on him, and he might be snoozing, even though he's got 2 points in his last 3 and 9 shots in his last 2 games, playing on a line with Dustin Brown and Blake Lizotte. So Anze Kopitar has kind of been booted off the Iafallo-Dustin Brown line, replaced by Blake Lizotte, if you flip it around and look at it another way. But the way to look at this is top line Andreas Athanasiou, taking shots, seeing like decent ice time is somebody worth a look.
Yes, I agree. I'm trying to think of something to say. The whole thing with Dustin Brown was crazy, what you said, because he's been like on the third line.
So why don't you say? Well, but he played with, but that has been aligned with Kopitar.
Oh, I see. Okay, yeah. Well, not for most of the season. Anyway, we don't need to get into it. It's
in the past, too.
In the past,
it was a ridiculous thing to say.
Yeah, no, it's funny. I like it.
Okay. Yeah, it was a joke.
Ha-ha.
Don't do that. Please don't do that.
Ah, yes, the good old days when Dustin Brown was a top-line player with Anze Kopitar. That was like at the start of this season, but obviously things have changed a little bit in LA, and now we'll see it. Dustin Brown, by the way, is an unrestricted free agent. It'll be interesting to see him on a different team next year. I feel like LA probably won't re-sign him, so that'll be a really like uninteresting UFA signing that, who knows, maybe we'll talk about him at least one more time on keeping Karlsson before he falls into obscurity next season. One more outry, okay? Let's go to Anaheim. Ryan Getzlaf. This is definitely might be the last time we talk about him because he's announced he's retiring at the end of the season. But in the meantime, he's still playing. He has an assist today. So he's not completely done. He also had a point in his last game. And overall, like Ryan Getzlaf is still, he's retiring on top, right? And not in terms of like his team success, but he's playing on the top line today with Henrique and Troy Terry. He assisted on a Troy Terry goal. Like I said, he also had 2 assists versus Tampa Bay in Anaheim's last game. So I definitely don't think Ryan Getzlaf is like a sure thing. And next week, Anaheim plays 3 times and only on Tuesday and then Saturday, Sunday. So don't grab him for Tuesday. But, if you're looking for a player who plays a couple times on the weekend, Ryan Getzlaf's been good to us for many, many years. And he also had a really good run even this year. So someone to keep your eye on. Maybe he's going to have a lot of extra oomph. He's going to give it all he's got, right? He doesn't have to worry about saving anything in the tank. The career is going to be over after 2 weeks. So maybe he's going to have a really proper send-off. I'd imagine he'll get like primo deploymento. Like there's no reason why Travis Green's not just going to give him all the best deployment. Like whatever Getzlaf wants, he's going to get. It's not like Anaheim has anything to play for. So I think that could be a reason to expect a strong end of a career for Getzlaf.
For sure. It's been a nice run for Ryan Getzlaf. I don't know. Is this the time to do like the career reflection on former 90-point guy, Ryan? Like he came into like being as a 90-point player. Really fantastic years with Corey Perry. Actually, he did that. Like he was hitting 90 points for a solid like 10, 11 years, or the better part of those 10, 11 years before falling off about in 18, 19 was his last really fantasy relevant season. There's not a whole lot to say about his value. I guess I'll just share another Anaheim take, which is also not a great take. But if you have Sonny Milano on your roster for some reason still, you're snoozing. He's not doing anything. He's playing like bottom 6. He's not shooting. He has 2 points in the last 2 months. He's missed a few games in there. that if you somehow have Milano still sitting on your roster, you can dump him. And it's unlikely Ryan Getzlaf is available, but that's all. Like, there's nothing more to say about Ryan Getzlaf. So thanks for calling him out, Elon. Way to go, Ryan Getzlaf. Hope you finish your career strong.
If you're listening to this show and you're going into your finals and you have Sonny Milano, and you heard that advice from Brian and you're like, oh, good one.
Something. What should I have said instead? Okay.
You should have said that another guy that's interesting is Ryan Getzlaf's line mate, Adam Henrique, who isn't in a recent outjury, but he actually has been really good overall since he came back at the beginning of April. He's been getting points almost every single game. And if Getzlaf, if we're saying that he's going to get great deployment, he's good friends with his friend Adam, who he's been playing with for a while.
I totally blew the obvious call for Adam Henrique. To be honest, I looked at Henrique on Getzlaf's line. I'm like, okay, everyone knows he's doing that, right? He's been like, this has been an incredible season for Adam Henrique, somebody who I've doubted time and time again. Except, early on in his career, there were a couple of years with New Jersey where I was like, maybe he could do something. But this so far is on pace to be a career year for Adam Henrique. He's on pace for 60 points. He's been able, even though I still don't think he's like the greatest hockey player, he's been able to solidify a place in the top 6 in Anaheim that has some players that you like to play with. So I'm going to say if you're in the finals, Adam Henrique is probably also gone. But we can take a moment here to at least celebrate Adam. You don't think he's unavailable?
Yeah, he's probably available in a lot of leagues. Like, I could bring it up on Yahoo right now. Okay, let's take a guess. Let's play over under. I'm going to guess 50. I'm going to guess 40%. Are you going to take higher or lower?
So he has 21 points in his last 23 games. He's shooting 11 goals on 54 shots. So a little high, but this has been going on for a while.
All right, so what do you take? Higher or lower than 40% rostered on Yahoo?
Okay, well, this just shows my faith in Yahoo rostership. I'll go under.
Yeah, it's 16%. Actually.
Wow, that's way under.
Well, don't forget he missed time also. So I think some people he might be available to. So go get Getzlaf or go get Henrique if you want to get some. But again, like I said, Ducks don't play until the weekend except for one game. So come Sat. Remember this. Write yourself a little to do on your phone. Tell your smart device, and hey, the A person, remind me on Saturday to add Henrique or Getzlaf. I don't want to say it, Brian, because people might be listening out loud, and then all of a sudden I'm going to trigger their.
Oh, I thought you were calling somebody a bad name.
No, I would never.
Okay.
That's not my style. Okay, let's do some hot streaks now to end the show here. Let's go to Brian's favorite team, your Ottawa Senators, and they've got a new exciting. I mean, he's been on the team for a while, but finally, really breaking out. We've seen little runs from Tim Stützle, but I think he's showing himself. Now we're seeing why this guy who's only 20 years old was picked 3rd overall in that draft a couple of years ago. What a run. He's on 13 points in his last 8 games after a couple goals against the Leafs on Saturday. What is there to say? Obviously the Sens are very excited. If you're a Sens fan, you're already maybe chomping at the bit for next season to see this all come together with all these early 20s guys ready to maybe take a run at a playoff spot finally, especially now that you have a solid goalie in Anton Forsberg, finally a goalie that seems to be somewhat reliable. But anyways, we don't want to do a deep dive into the Sens here, but I'm just curious to know, Brian, how for real is this Tim Stützle run? Obviously if he's available for next week, this is we've had some people saying that they could add him, and Ottawa has a great schedule. They play Monday, Tuesday, Friday, Saturday. So that's 2 off-day games and 4 games by Saturday. So if somehow Stützle's available, I'm not even going to ask. I'm going to tell. Get him. Stop, pause the pod and grab Tim Stützle, right? But Brian, I'm curious just how this is very exciting, right? You must be excited as a Sens fan. Next year, there's going to be Josh Norris, Drake Batherson, and Stützle all available in fantasy drafts. Probably Brady Tkachuk is the clear guy you take first for good reason. But after that, has Stützle overtaken even Norris and Batherson in terms of how excited we should be about him for fantasy?
The question for Stützle was always a matter of deployment. He couldn't stick even definitely not on the top line, and sometimes not even in the top 6. He was sort of being stuck in the middle 6, not able to really establish himself. They're trying him out. Can he be a center? Is he a winger? But even with all of that, he's spent the last 2 games since Drake Batherson's returned playing with Drake Batherson. Before that, he was playing with guys like Alex Formenton, Connor Brown, Adam Gaudette, and still putting up points night after night. 25 points in Stützle's last 20 games. Huge part of that has been Stützle's power play production. 13 power play points over his last 20 games is that Ottawa Senators top power play unit is really clicking with Kachuk, Batherson, Norris, and Stützle. I would say the stumbling block for Stützle is still, I would say the stumbling block, I would say that, whoa. I would say the stumbling block for Stützle, say that 10 times fast, is that he still might not necessarily have a place on the top line in Ottawa, right? He might be on a really good second line if he's paired with Drake Batherson. And I think Alex Formenton is a top 6 player, while Kachuk and Norris play with Connor Brown, but it's still line number 2. So Stützle, I would almost be looking for at least a season like Martin Nichas had last season in Carolina, where, oh wait, sorry, no, that's not the comparison I want to make.
Yeah, he's already basically doing that this year.
Yeah. I would be looking for a season. What am I? Oh, how can I reframe that? Okay. Hang on. Okay. Stützle right now is being powered by 24 power play points in 72 games, which is huge, right? So if he can keep that going on the top power play unit, which I think he should, there's no doubt about that. So we don't have to worry about that piece of his deployment. That's going to be the bedrock for him being able to continue putting up points at 5-on-5. And even from the second line, if his power play production stays the way it has been, which it very well could, then I think he's a pretty good lock for 60, which he's already pacing for this year. So that's a pretty boring. I guess the question is, are we expecting point per game? And I think the Norris versus Batherson question was a really good one. I feel like also coming into this season, those 3 were on similar footing. And going into next season, I think they're still on similar footing, but at a level about 20 points higher than we were considering them coming into this season. So I don't know I'm ready to pick one, Elon, but I can say Stützle just seems like so exciting and so confident. But all these guys do. These are all young players that we're watching come into their own before our eyes. And like every game, they seem to have found, like, picked up just another little hint of like how to succeed at the NHL level. And I think they're no-brainer draft picks next season. So I'll still, if it's okay with you, I'd like to just lump them all together for now. We can try and tease them apart in the off season. But yeah, Stützle on the top power play and playing with Batherson at even strength, good situation. And I can only see him getting better.
Yeah, okay, I'll throw a name at you. I think that you were, okay, because that wasn't on the show, I guess. All right, I'm going to throw a name at you, Brian, to consider, just to get the mouth watering for Sens fans like yourself. I'm kind of seeing here like Andrei Svechnikov in terms of fantasy, not necessarily in style of play, but his first year, he was good, not amazing. Then when he turned 20, he like really started to show us something. And then by 21, Svechnikov is like, crazy superstar. And what I'm seeing here from Stützle, as a 20-year-old, just going on the run that he's on, producing so much on the power play, like you said. And remember, Svechnikov sometimes wouldn't play with Aho, and so he'd be a little worried about like what kind of upside could he really have. And maybe you could say the same about Stützle. Maybe he won't be playing with Brady Tkachuk, but I don't know. I could see Stützle really being a high value guy for next season. Someone maybe like a Tarasenko this year, right? Someone that falls, then it'll turn out that he was someone who was amazing, and maybe he's not like as sure a thing as like a Tarasenko or a Svechnikov, but I don't know. It's always very exciting when you see a 20-year-old on a run like this. That's all I'm going to say.
I love that comparison, Elon. Off mic, I made a failed comparison to Martin Nichas. Like I started making it and realized it wasn't the right one, but I'm glad you found the right Carolina Hurricane. I think that's a great thought about big power play success with not ideal 5-on-5, but still enough to make some noise with. I'm very excited about Tim Stützle. I think probably of that whole group with Batherson and Norris, maybe the one distinction I'll give him is he might have the highest upside of anybody there.
There you go. And by the way, speaking of players who sort of maybe were slow at points this season, but right now are just en fuego, we have to go to Minnesota and talk about, I could be talking about a bunch of people, but I'm going to specifically, got one more time for Kevin Fiala. He's gotten a lot of play this season on keeping Karlsson, but man, the run he's on right now is insane. As we speak, is this game over yet? Minnesota's playing San Jose. Yeah, they've won 5-4 in overtime, a 1 goal, 3 assist performance for Kevin Fiala, and this is not a rarity recently. He's just like getting points every single game. He had 8 points in his previous 5 games going into today, and just another huge performance. He is like amazing, and he's even now finally for the second game in a row on the top power play. That's the one thing he didn't have. Now he had none of these points today were on the power play. It's looking like, but nice to know he has it. I made a trade, Brian, in our keeper league that we're in with Shams, who by the way won. Congrats, Shams, on winning the Buffalo. Great accomplishment. Shams knocked actually my team out in the quarterfinals. But yeah, in the Buffalo, I had Trevor Zegras, and I traded him for Fiala, and I also got a pick upgrade. And people might be thinking, what are you, crazy? Zegras is the future. So it's only, by the way, you can only keep for like 4 years. So it's not like I gave up Zegras' whole career, just like the next 3 years after this one. But yeah, I'd be curious to know, Brian, what you think at this point in terms of Fiala for the future. Because like this year, he's been so up and down. Now we're going to go into drafts next year, and people are going to be looking at a near point per game guy, because that's where he's currently at. He's at 73 points in 75 games after this game today. Do you have to be wary that once again he could just be pushed down the lineup and he's going to be someone we have to worry about? Or like, can we finally just be like, Kevin Fiala's good and he'll be able to actually do this for a whole season? Because the run he's on right now is just absolutely insane, and he seems to be clicking so well with Boldy and Freddie Gaudreau, so they got a good spot for him.
Yeah, like that's the big question, right? Do you draft Kevin Fiala knowing that this year, 15 points in his first 25 games, left a lot of people just like wondering, what am I going to do? And even I, at one point, was starting to lose faith in the buy low argument I've always made for Kevin Fiala, because like his ice time was still low and his deployment wasn't improving. But things started clicking at some point. 54 points now in Fiala's last 49 games.
Can I say at some point? I think it was when Boldy came, right? I feel like that was the point.
It was around the time, yeah, when he got on the line with Boldy and Gaudreau together, and they all started doing things. And so do you draft this guy with this track record of just leaving you hanging out to dry for the first few months? But now we can say, like, he's been on fire. Fiala's been on fire for 50 games after a slow start for the first 25 games. So he's been doing well for twice as long as the time that he wasn't doing well. And I think that's enough. Like, we see the place coming into this season. The reason we were starting to lose a little bit of faith in Fiala is we didn't see where he fit into the Minnesota depth chart. And we saw he wasn't like elevating himself up it. But now that we see he has a line, he has a place, we don't have to worry about the guy, then maybe I will once again on draft day be ready to take another swing on Kevin Fiala and just be ready to grit my teeth through any early season struggles. But yeah, he's done enough to erase any concern over those first 25 games for me at this point.
Right, do you have it in front of you who his line mates were at the start of the year? I remember like the problem was it seemed like he was lining up with nobody. Like he wasn't on the Kaprizov line. He didn't have a center. All of a sudden now, like Freddie Gaudreau, by the way, has goals. I think he had goals in 3 straight games going into today. 3 assists today. Did I mention that I picked it? It's almost like sad now that my couple season's over because I just made this great free agent pickup of Freddie Gaudreau. I want to hold on to him longer, but it was a nice final day of the season stream. He's looking amazing. Boldy is someone also who I got in free agency, and he had another goal and assist today, 5 shots. Like, it really just seems like the one thing that was missing from Fiala is he just didn't have good players to play with. And I don't know actually the status of Freddie Gaudreau, so how about I'll look that up quickly while you answer my last question of if he's even going to be back next season. But even regardless, like Boldy's obviously amazing and he's going to be there for a while because he's just a rookie. So it just seems like, yeah, I feel a little bit more confident in Fiala for next season just because we don't have to worry about if he's going to be attached to Kaprizov. He can be away from Kaprizov and still produce.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, his production this season started just a smidge before Boldy came, but that could just be, he was hot, even in a tough situation. To answer your question, Fiala started the season on a line with Freddie Gaudreau and Victor Rask, and then was moved to a line with Marcus Foligno and Joel Eriksson Ek. And then there was a bit of blending over the next like 5 or 10 games or so until Boldy came into the picture. And like you said, it's all history.
Yeah, by the way, Gaudreau still signed for another season. So that line, I don't see why that can't. I mean, we'll have a whole playoffs, I guess, to see like if anything changes there. But as of now, that looks like a great trio for sure. And yeah, in terms of people in deeper leagues that are like, stop telling me about Stützle and Fiala, they're not available. Freddie Gaudreau might be, and he is doing really well. I guess I could actually look at Minnesota's schedule and see if that's a useful advice here. They play, 4 games, Tuesday, Thursday, Friday, Sunday. So 2 off days in there. Go check if, actually, Sundays looks like a busy day, actually. There's going to be 11 games. But yeah, check and see if Gaudreau is available for you. And obviously, we've already talked enough about Johnny Gaudreau being an amazing Gaudreau in his own right. But Freddie Gaudreau, not too bad. Let's go to Buffalo now. So they have a bad schedule next week. They play Thursday, Saturday. So this is kind of useless, I guess. Like just because like
Elon,
yeah.
sorry, I'm going to interrupt. I don't know like if something's tapping or rocking, but I've noticed over the last couple runs you've been on.
Oh, okay.
I'm
Maybe
just
I've been
hearing
like
like a
looking things
bop,
up
bop,
while I've
bop.
been doing it. Okay. Thanks. So Gaudreau, what was I saying here? Buffalo.
You were saying we're going to Buffalo. They don't have a good schedule.
Yeah. I guess let's go to Buffalo next. I don't even know if it's really worth talking about them just because their schedule next week is not very good at all. They only play on Thursday and Saturday, but at least some players to keep in mind. One is Victor Olofsson, who has usurped Alex Tuch. Like, Olofsson's taken over on that top line with Thompson and Skinner, leaving Tuch to play with Casey Middlestat and Peyton Krebs. At least that was how things were looking in today's game. Not great, I guess, for Alex Tuch. Not that he's been terrible, but I want to talk about Victor Olofsson here, who had another great game against Philly in the 5-3 win. He scored a couple of goals. By the way, did I say that Alex Tuch hasn't been terrible? Let me just bring him up quickly because I want to make sure that's actually true. I think he has been not very good recently. Yeah, he had a goal against St. Louis and he had a couple assists against Toronto. He's pointless in his last couple against Philly. So whatever. I'm not talking about Alex Tuch. I'm talking about Victor Olofsson, Victor Golofsson, and right now he's someone that I think you might be interested in because, like I said, he's on the top line. He's on a hot run, but Buffalo doesn't play until Thursday. But when they do play, it seems like Olofsson has a good chance to maybe start. It's looking like he's maybe starting to be the guy that we thought he was when he had that rookie season. He was really clicking with Jack Eichel, and I believe that was the year. Wasn't that the year when Skinner scored all those goals and then got that good contract? But, or I guess probably not. No, because it was Olofsson who was taking Skinner's spot. Anyway, Brian, clearly people could tell that I'm doing this off the cuff. All I'm saying is Victor Olofsson's doing really well right now, and he's on the top line. So that's just something noteworthy.
Yeah, well, I think actually what we're trying to say here is if you're playing with Tage Thompson and Jeff Skinner, then you're wanted on fantasy rosters. Olofsson has been on a goal-scoring tear lately, 13 goals now with 2 today in his last 24 games. And not a ridiculous shooting percentage in that time. He's got those 13 goals on 61 shots, which means like he's somewhere, just above 20% shooting. And that's okay. Like that might be like it's high for sure, especially for a guy whose career number was 10%, but it doesn't mean that it's all a mirage. One concerning thing about Olofsson all season long has been his ice time. Like he's been averaging 15 minutes of ice a game. And this is somebody who we were expecting to like step up and get to play. Like we were saying coming into the season that Olofsson is the one Buffalo Sabre worth rostering that you can count on to score. And sure enough, he gets demoted into the middle six, loses 2 minutes a night of ice time, and his heater at the start of the season was just that, a heater. I think this is a bit of a mix between some luck and playing with really great line mates, which he wasn't doing at the start of the season. So Elon, I like what you're saying, pointing out Victor Olofsson. He's still a bit of a mystery to me. I've sort of given up on him having huge upside, but as a 55-point guy who's like sometimes hot and then other times unreliable, that's sort of how he's shaping up to me to be.
Okay, yeah. So unfortunately, Buffalo doesn't have the great schedule, but maybe for the following week, you want to take a look at Olofsson if he's somehow still out there. Let's go to Washington now, a team with a great schedule, at least for next week. Monday, Wednesday, Friday, Sunday. I feel like Dave wouldn't call it a streamagami on Stream Scheme since Sunday is a busy day, but still, at least for those first 3 days, you probably want to get in on some Washington Capitals. You might be thinking, well, which ones should I grab? I guess one that jumps out to me is Anthony Mantha, who's been somewhat disappointing, or at least he was when he first came back from that injury. But lately, I mean, we just saw him put up 2 goals and 2 assists against Montreal in that crazy win, and that was with Montembeault in net. So again, that might be kind of like those Arizona games we were talking about before. I don't know how much you want to count them. Before that, though, he had a couple assists against Philly, he had an assist against Boston. So Mantha seems to be getting involved in the offense. I don't love the ice time. I don't really love the power play deployment. But if, the obvious guys on Washington are taken, I guess he's someone to look at this point with a good schedule coming up.
Exactly. I think that's it. He's sort of like maybe even a downgrade from someone like Brandon Saad, who we were talking about, as someone who, if St. Louis has a good schedule for you, you can add him. He'll hit about as much as he misses. And I wouldn't say that is true for Anthony Mantha. I think he still might miss a little more than he hits, but he is coming back onto the scene. But that ice time is definitely concerning. 14 minutes a night. He's playing with Tom Wilson at even strength, which I guess is something. But Tom Wilson without Ovechkin, I feel like that's not really so great of a situation. And like you also said, Elon, he's not seeing top power play minutes either. So yeah, I think he had a great game against Montreal, 5 shots, 4 points. But that was against Montreal, and I don't think we should read too much into it. So don't trip over yourself for Anthony Mantha, but a decent sort of deeper cut.
Yeah, definitely a schedule play there a little bit. Maybe in the Vincent Trocheck-ish vein, I'll mention TJ Oshie, who is someone that's been pretty cold recently. Like, he actually did score in that game against Montreal, but like, who didn't? But before that, he only had 2 points in like 9 games. But yeah, if he was dropped in your league because, Washington just played on busy games this week and Oshie wasn't doing much, definitely he's someone you want to grab going into next week, because even though he's cold, he's still on that top power play with Ovi. And, with a good schedule, there's no way I'd be leaving him in free agency if I saw him in any of my leagues. Do you want me to just go on?
Yeah.
All right. Where to go next here? Let's do a hot goalie, Brian. I guess we haven't done too much goalie talk since those injuries at the top. We have to talk about Mike Smith. We do this all the time. I mean, what is there to say, right? Mike Smith is on a hot streak. I'm going to be like, Brian, how is this happening? And you're going to be like, well, we see this sometimes. Mike Smith goes hot, but then all of a sudden he's going to like blow you up. So he's kind of a risk. But right now he is like just like dialed in. I'll just give you the official numbers here in his last
so
5
many
games.
don't
even want me to.
Well, there's so many episodes in our back catalog that you could go listen to now for like this exact exchange. Like, go for it. Let's play it out.
All right, let me just play it out here. 2 straight shutouts against Vegas and Nashville in his last 2 games. Before that, he had 2 goals against LA, 1 goal against San Jose, and 1 goal against Anaheim. So basically his last 5 games have all been like either shutouts or like 940 plus save percentage games. So this guy is just as hot can be. And like, it would be crazy at this point probably to not roster him, but he's Mike Smith. So I don't know. They're playing Dallas, Colorado, and Columbus next week. So the real test will be, let's see how he does against Colorado. If he could have a good game there, then I'll be like very impressed.
That would be, yeah. And I still wouldn't even change my mind. He's now 40 years old. I've mentioned before that Jason Gregor called me out on Twitter for calling him a 40-year-old goalie when he was 39 years and like 235 days old. But now I can officially say Mike Smith is a 40-year-old goalie who has incredibly stopped 162 of the last 166 shots that he's faced. Incredible. Way to go, Mike Smith. It's a fantastic run, and it's gone on over 5 games. So I'm not going to discount it. And this is the Mike Smith story, though, right? He'll win you weeks. He'll show up in crunch time sometimes, and other times he'll go completely absent. But this is sort of like, it's funny because this is what Edmonton needs to succeed in the playoffs, right? They're going to need big goaltending, but just because Mike Smith is doing this now, to me, does not offer any assurances that Mike Smith is going to be doing it later. It is nice to see him turn around his season. Like, this is definitely the steadiest, most consistently high level of play we've seen from him this season. So way to go, Mike Smith. And I will be curious. Like, I'm going to keep an open mind, as I always do, to see just how long he can keep this up for.
Okay, a couple cold streaks now, Brian. Let's go to Tampa. So when I saw that I had clinched a bye in the Cupful with still a couple weeks left in the regular season, I was looking ahead to, who had a good schedule in the playoffs, and I saw that Tampa played Monday, Wednesday, Friday, Sunday for the semifinals. So I thought, might as well go after Brayden Point, right? He had been hot. He was doing really well. Going into the fantasy playoffs, he was on a run of like 6 straight games, getting either a goal or an assist. And then the playoffs started on April 4th, and since then, he's like on the coldest run maybe of his career. I mean, he's had only 1 assist in the 7 games that he gave. Thankfully, the rest of my team stepped up because Brayden Point, I was so excited, Brian, today to drop him before like my final day of the season to get Freddie Gaudreau, because I didn't want like Brayden Point to have the opportunity to drink from the Cupful Cup because he didn't deserve it. So I had to waive him right before that last day, even though I didn't need to. He's been terrible. What's going on? And to make it like, just to really insult me, Tampa scored 7 goals against Winnipeg yesterday. How could he not get in on any of it? I guess he was +3, so he was on the ice. He just specifically was like, I've been told that I'm not supposed to help Elon out at all, so I'm going to have to just let Kucherov take care of things even while I'm on the ice. So anyways, for people who are still moving forward, should they be worried about Brayden Point, or is this just some random like aberration, like just for my fantasy playoffs, and now that my season's over, he'll go back to being the Brayden Point that he was for the previous parts of the season?
Yeah, I think it says something that Brayden Point is still on a 74-point pace, even with this cold streak. Even you said this is the coldest we've ever seen him, maybe in his career. which is to say Braden Point is still a really good player. And yeah, this was just a bad time for Braden Point to go cold. His numbers this year are actually like really good. And like, I know that that's not helpful to you right now. And you're kind of mad at the guy and we're really happy to drop him, but he is seeing more ice time than he ever has before. And he's shooting more than he ever has before, I think in part because of that ice time. And honestly, everything he's done is very consistent with the last few seasons where he's bounced between a 70 and 95 point player, but we had already written off him repeating that 95 point season. We thought he was somewhere, around maybe a 75, 80 point guy, which he has turned out to be. But lately, I think what's really hurting Braden Point is that he's just not getting in on goals while he's on the ice. Like you mentioned that game where Tampa scored, what would you say? Was it 8 goals against Winnipeg?
7 goals.
7 goals. Braden Point was on the ice for 5 of them. And his career IPP, his points participation rates, would suggest Braden Point is going to get in on at least 3 of those, probably 4 of those 5 goals. And he didn't. He didn't get a point on any of them. And honestly, the track record over the last several games is very similar. Goals are being scored while Braden Point is on the ice. He's just not in on the play, which I think is just noise, right? I think this is not something that's sustainably going poorly for Braden Point. I think this is just a low run of points participation. I think it'll come back. And if you can catch anyone panicking in a dynasty league, catch them now, because Braden Point is still going to be at least a 70-point player going forward. And I think still has the potential to be a point per game guy, especially going back to what I said to start this, because he's been given more responsibility this year than he has any other year except his sophomore season in terms of the ice time he's seeing. So and shooting more, setting career highs for shots per game. So he's still only 26 years old. He just turned 26. So there's lots of reasons to still be into Braden Point and to be trying to go buy low on him in a keeper dynasty format.
Yeah, for sure. I know for sure that there's a patron, Kyle, who was very upset about Braden Point and telling us all about it yesterday on our Discord in our Dynasty chat. So anyone in his league, now would probably be good before Kyle listens to this episode. Go and try to make a trade with him. Okay, Brian, to end the show, I've got 4 players for you who have started joining the league. Okay, they've just come up, and I want to get your thoughts on if these are people that we should have any interest in for this final 2 weeks. And they're people that most of whom I don't know very much about at all. So, and probably you don't either, but you can give me your quick, who is this person? So in Colorado, they signed this guy out of college named Ben Mayers, who I saw a lot of lists and tweets saying he's the top.
Elon, they signed this guy. Are you sure it's Ben Mayers?
I don't know. You tell me.
That sounds unlikely. I would definitely read that as Myers.
Okay, let's call him Ben Myers. And see, well, we're learning, Brian. We're learning together about this new player in the league. Apparently, according to the tweets I read, he was the top college player. He was a really sought after guy. I don't know why he wasn't drafted. There's probably a whole interesting story behind that. Anyways, he went to Colorado because, of course, Colorado is a team that needs even more firepower. And he's played 1 game so far, and he scored a goal against Carolina. He only played 9 minutes and 30 seconds, and that's all he needed to get a goal. And who knows if his deployment will increase, because again, everything I'm reading is that this guy is really good. So Brian, going into fantasy finals, he's one person. How about I'll just name all 4 of them, and then you could just give me your thoughts overall. So another one, the San Jose Sharks have signed a player named...
Elon, you're really tapping a lot. I'm hearing a ton of it.
Oh yeah, it's because I'm typing.
So start with this. Yeah. So okay. Maybe do all the typing you need for the next few players.
Okay, I'll just mute myself as I go. Okay. Another player. Next up. Okay, let's do all 4. Then we'll do all at once. Okay. So the next guy I want to mention is someone who the San Jose Sharks have signed recently. His name is Thomas Bordeleau, and he also has just started his time. He's 20 years old, and in 1 game with the San Jose Sharks, he had an assist today against Minnesota. So look at that. He played 13 minutes. So again, it's low ice time, but how much can you read into the ice time of a player's first game in the NHL? It can only go up from here, right? So he's the next guy. Then we'll go to Buffalo. Here's a player I had definitely heard of. He is the first overall pick from last season, Owen Power. One sec. Let me do my tippy taps. Like I said earlier, Buffalo doesn't have the great schedule next week, so maybe you're not jumping on Owen Power, but obviously excited to see him get some games. And so far in the 4 games he's played, he only has 1 assist, though he's been playing big minutes, like 22 plus minutes. But obviously, as a defenseman, not getting power play time, hard to get too excited about him. And then there's a bunch of guys in Philly: Bobby Brink, Zamula, Attard, someone named Noah Cates, who's had a goal and assist today. I don't know how that happened, but they have just a bunch of young players. You can just tell me if there's any of them that you're interested in for the rest of the season. But yeah, now's the time of the year where these teams that are out of it, well, I don't know, Ben Myers, like he's not out, like Colorado's not out of it. I don't think they're allowed to play him in the playoffs. I think that's the rule, but regardless, whatever. Teams that are, like showcasing some players or doing whatever they want with these new players, do we have any interest in them for the fantasy finals? Ben Myers, Thomas Bordeleau, Owen Power, or a random Philly person, because they have all new players apparently.
Okay. I'm not sure how I want to go about it. I think I'm just going to give the disclaimer right off the top that like generally we like to see a little bit more from players, but we also like there's only a couple weeks left, and we've seen guys like Ryan Poehling actually comes to mind as a guy who did come in at the end of a season once for Montreal and looked really impressive for a few games and hasn't come back up to that level. But if you added him, you were really happy that you added him. So we're not going to write off any of these guys, period, just because they're young and new. There's so few games left in the NHL season. There's enough time for them to make an impact, and it's worth looking at them all, starting with Ben Myers. I just needed to like double check his name, who's like an undersized left winger out of the University of Minnesota. He's actually like from Minnesota, played for a Fargo team in the U.S. Hockey League and then the University of Minnesota, and has now jumped ship and joined Colorado. He played like just 10 minutes in the first game. He got a goal on 2 shots, so that's great. But Colorado is a tough place to be a depth producer. Like I look at who he's playing with, and that's all I need to see. Like he's playing with Logan O'Connor and Andrew Cogliano. Logan O'Connor is a name that I've been interested in, or was interested in a lot early on in the season, because he kept finding himself sort of slotting in on the top line for injured players, and at least on a high-powered Colorado team, I thought maybe he'd be able to pick up some points just by association, but he didn't. And so I sort of see Ben Myers going the same way. Ben Myers, undrafted, Ilana, yeah, I don't know why. I think he just played college, but I'm not sure how that relates to his draft status. He's already 23. The next guy
here, I'll tell you one good thing about Ben Myers. One final thing is Shane in the chat. And Shane, by the way, congratulations to him. His team just beat my team in my Dynasty League after I won the first year. And Maddie and I didn't lose a matchup all season until the finals, until we lost to Shane and Adam. So clearly Shane is amazing at Dynasty. He knows what he's talking about. And he just wrote, Ben Myers is good. Dynasty for sure, worth an ad. So for any of you in your deep Dynasty leagues, Shane, the League of Extraordinary Gentlemen champion, says he's really good.
Okay. All right, on to Thomas Bordeleau, whose father, Sebastian Bordeleau, used to play for Montreal. He actually started with the Hull Olympique, just down the road from us, over in what's now Gatineau in the QMJHL. Sebastian, his father, was kind of a journeyman. Thomas Bordeleau has, I don't know, what looks like the same makeup in terms of a prospect. Was pretty productive this year with the University of Michigan, 37 points in 37 games, but productivity in college doesn't always translate to productivity in the NHL. Played a few games with the Barracuda of the AHL, 3 points in 2 games there, came up to the NHL, a point in his first NHL game. So this is a guy who has produced everywhere he's been. Former second round pick, 38th overall of San Jose back in 2020. So look, he's still young. He's 20 years old. There's somewhere for him to go. And San Jose is definitely auditioning players for next year. So he is someone who, like, I don't know, has at least more of a recent goal scoring reputation, just looking at his recent career numbers, than Ben Myers. But he's playing with Noah Gregor and Rudolph Balcers on like the all prospects who may never actually develop line in San Jose right now. So yeah, there you go. There's the Thomas Bordeleau rundown. And then you asked about who Owen Power. We covered Owen Power on a recent show, basically saying that Owen Power is a defenseman in Buffalo, and we already know the defenseman in Buffalo that we count on to produce, and that's Rasmus Dahlin. I don't expect big production out of Owen Power, though it sure is nice that he is being trusted early on with big minutes. Like they're really giving him his reps. He started with 19 minutes and 50 seconds in his career debut. Since then, has played 23 minutes, and 22 minutes, including a pretty sizable penalty kill role. Unfortunately, with all that ice time, Power is not putting up any kind of peripherals, even on the penalty kill. So you're not seeing hits or blocks or shots come in any way that would make him rosterable. But I guess in leagues, if you're like average time on ice is counted, then maybe Owen Power can help you there. And yeah, I don't think we can expect him to be this offensive Owen powerhouse coming up, seeing as he's behind Rasmus Dahlin on the depth chart. So keep that in mind. And then you're asking me about all these Philly guys, Elon, and then I'm just looking at the Flyers lines, and I think that's all anybody should do. Noah Cates playing with Travis Konechny and Kevin Hayes, which is probably the most attractive place to be in the lineup. So he might be the guy that I take a look at. He's 23 years old, a 5th round draft pick, and he's already gotten 10 games in, 3 points in his last 2 games. He's not shooting, he's not seeing a ton of minutes, but out of these guys, like Bobby Brink, and who else is there getting a look? You mentioned Igor Zamula and Ronnie Attard. I feel like Noah Cates is the one I might take a shot on, but I'd probably... Like, I'm trying to decide if I'd rather Owen Tippett, who had 5 shots in his last game and is playing on a line right now with James Van Riemsdyk and Scott Laughton. Look, I actually think this is pretty similar to our advice for Philly all season long, which is that you don't know what you're going to get. Maybe it'll work out, but more likely than not, it won't. So it's great that these guys are getting auditions this late in the season. I'll throw out Noah Cates as the guy I'd add, but without knowing very much about him or his career at all. That's where I'm at. I would be interested to hear what more from Dynasty goers. Like we have a podcast that we always promote, Fantasy Hockey Life. Go to Dobber Prospects, Elite Prospects, Hockey DB. Like this is where I do my research, and I encourage you to go there and do yours to find out more about these guys, or tweet at us if you know something about them that we don't.
Yeah, I think that it'll be really fun to get a Philly beat writer for our summer beat writer series to ask about all these young players, as Philly clearly needs to go through a rebuild, and clearly they've decided that's the case because they didn't re-sign, Claude Giroux for another long-term contract like San Jose did with Tomas Hertl. And I think Philly knows that they need to sort of start from the ground up, and it looks like they have a lot of prospects. It's just a matter of if they're good or not. I have Zamula and Attard in my Dynasty League, so it would be nice if at least one of them could be something one day. Okay, Brian, this has been so fun going through everything. Look at you, look at us. The season's over and we're still just going to talk fantasy because we're obsessed with it. That's why we've been doing this podcast for the past 9 years or so. But unfortunately, this episode has come to an end. Thank you so much, everyone, for listening. Before you click unsubscribe and then disregard everything we're doing for the next few months, a plea, okay? We have a lot going on still. We're gonna, like I said, start a beat writer series soon, and we're gonna start trying to churn out episodes talking to someone who knows what they're talking about each team, and give you an interview with a fantasy slant. There's lots of podcasts and shows, whatever, talking about, how's Florida going to be next year? Are they going to be as good, blah, blah, blah. But we're going to be talking about the specific players. We're going to ask about, who is going to, continue the great seasons they've had, who's maybe going to fall off. We try to really dig deep with these beat writer interviews. So we definitely recommend you stay subscribed for that. Brian mentioned we're going to do a fun show where we're going to ask people to share their excuses for why they lost their leagues. I definitely have some for the ones that I lost. So that'll be fun. Follow us on Twitter for any call outs of that sort. Plus, for the patrons of Keeping Karlsson, we're about ready, as we're going to wrap up the Keeping Karlsson Ultimate Patron Fantasy League season. We're going to start preparing for our Keeping Karlsson playoff pool, the KKPP. It's going to be the 3rd year of this, and it is so fun. Basically, the gist is we're going to, let's say 156 people sign up. We're going to break you into 12 leagues, and you're each going to do a slow draft, and each draft will be, for drafting, let's say 8 players. We'll hammer out all the rules. I've already written a rules doc that I've sent to Brian to look over. But yeah, you're going to each have a slow draft, and that's going to be only for round 1 of the playoffs. And then let's say the top 4 in each of those leagues, we're going to reshuffle all of you. And then you're going to, in round 2, draft again for players in round 2. And you're going to keep redrafting until there's only 2 people or maybe 4 people in the finals. And we'll have the ultimate Keeping Karlsson playoff pool winner. So it's a ton of fun. And that's something we're going to be doing with our patrons. So if that sounds interesting to you, if you are a patron, we're going to message you soon in the next couple of days. Probably you're going to get tagged on Discord. Make sure you're paying attention to your Discord tags, and you'll see everything you need to know with a sign up form for that. If you're not a patron, sign up for $1. Okay, we're in our summer promotion time, so go to keepingkarlsson.com/patron, and you could come play in our playoff pool and all the other fun stuff we do with the patrons. But Brian, with that, I am ready to wrap this baby up. Oh wait, no, I'm not. Oh no, I forgot. Brian's gonna tell you about some people who have won or lost their leagues.
I'm going to tell you. Well, no, I'm not just going to tell you about the people. In fact, I don't know much about the people, but we are going to do our Keeping Karlsson tradition that Elon loves so much. Where we're going to, it's that time of year. A lot of people losing, a lot of people winning. Elon, let's start by shouting out some of the teams we've lost along the way. Can you cue up that music?
I'm queuing up the music. Eh? All right, so this will be a bit of a longer edit, but worth it because we need to, pay our respects to these teams that made it far, but in the end just couldn't do what I did, and and I lost 2 leagues, by the way, so I know what you're talking about. It's really hard to win a fantasy league. Okay, so for all the winners coming up, you should feel really proud, and for the people who have lost, better luck next year. That's why you're listening to this podcast. You're trying to get better. But okay, Brian, let's do it. The music is cued. Okay, let's do it. Happy Father's Day.
I'm just off mic. There's definitely some names that aren't going to be said. So, a team named after. I'm hoping you'll realize.
Just don't say it. Just
I want you not to say it.
But don't say a team named after Hyman. We just sound lame. Just if you don't want to say it, just don't say it and skip over it.
Okay.
That's my opinion.
Okay. Sure. Well, there's 5 teams that we're not going to shout out then.
All right. Well, next time you do your Twitter shout out, be like, we're only going to do family-friendly team names.
Someone, I'll say this I won't say all of it on YouTube, but they name their team F Daddy Flex. Why? I don't get it.
Maybe it's an inside joke with their friends.
Yeah, maybe.
That's not a bad name. I think we can say that and just say F. It's not inappropriate. It's not insulting or anything to me.
I shortened it to F.
Yeah, exactly. But I mean, that's fine. As long as it's nothing that's offensive, I think it's okay. I actually say that word, Brian, pretty often.
Well, I do too.
So
on occasion, just not on our show. Okay, well, I don't understand. You're giving me 2 different policies.
I'm saying for the sexually explicit, whatever, those names, I agree. Let's not say those. But
okay.
If it's just a bad word, we can just say.
Well, what about this one?
That's fine. Because that's
Where does that fall to you?
That's fine. I think it's just a person's name and the word off after.
I'm not. Yeah, I'm not. Well.
All right, so take it out. Sexually explicit.
Well, in what way?
It's referencing masturbation. I guess we don't want to have that in the show.
Well, it's definitely better than the other one I deleted.
All right.
And is this bad? This sounds bad, but I don't think it's bad.
I don't think it's bad. I think it's okay. Err on the side of it's
I
fine.
don't know.
I really don't care. I don't even want to do this. So.
Okay. Yeah, well, you spend a lot of time saying that when. Okay.
You're asking me you
Here we go.
share the doc
I'm never
with me.
asking you. I just want you want me to do it by myself?
No, you tell me what you want me to do.
I want you to do the thing we always do every time.
Let's do it.
Okay. All right. First up, the Mitt Munchers 2.0, who lost to their wife, Hockey Balboa. So early winner shout out to Hockey Balboa. They thanked us for the great content and help. I wish we could have helped you more next year.
Well, we could only help one person in the family win if you're in the same league. This is like a Rob and Amber situation, right? Even though one of you won and one of you lost, really you both won because you live in the same household, so you take home the prize money, right? Next loser, Philip Forsberg's mustache and Panarin bread, both out. Always a bummer to lose 2 leagues at the same time. Made it to the semis, though. Great accomplishment.
See you later, new Dougie. Lost in the quarterfinals after being second in the regular season. Ouch.
I mean, you had Dougie Hamilton. I mean, see why you lost.
That's why you finished second in the regular season, but then didn't do well in the playoffs. Yeah.
Jeez, man. Dougie I had him lined up for today's show, and I just didn't want to talk about it.
Why bother?
He sucks. Man, I have to decide if I'm going to keep him next year in our keeper league. I don't even know if it's worth it. All right, what are we doing here next? The Rhinoceroses lost by 1 point in the quarterfinals due to Peugeot's 4 points on Sunday. Ouch. Also, shout out to the Samurai Lincolns for never being very good at all.
The Ducks, straight up the Ducks were the favorites. A lot of favorites going out. I guess if you've lost at this point, you might have been a favorite, but you were upset in the semifinals. So I'm sorry to the Ducks. Have some bread.
Vanek at the Disco. That's a throwback name at this point. Was looking for the third win in a row, lost in the semis, battling for third place finish. Impressive run, but just like even the great Thomas Vanek, you got to slow down at some point, go to the Habs and be kind of useless.
And the great band Panic at the Disco, historically relevant. They came back for a little bit. What was
That's
it,
the one that's
last
like, why don't you never heard of closing the goddamn door?
That's exactly it. And pretty much on pitch too. Bergeron Burgundy finished 5th. Sorry.
It's a funny name. The Phoenix Coyotes.
right
Okay.
next to the Ducks.
One of the top teams all season, undone by gerrymandering. Very funny.
That's funny. That's cleverer than Phoenix Coyotes for sure. Hockey Balboa, definitely the best name so far. And they won. So maybe that's another team that just lost in the finals. F Daddy Flex.
Okay.
Just
too bad.
That's it.
Close.
Yeah.
Father and Son and the Boldy Ghost. First round exit. Yeah, Boldy was cold at the wrong time, I guess.
Another team that's out is Meet Your Makar. And they noted that no one feared them. And they got last place because they spent too heavy in the auction on Kale Makar. It's unfortunate.
Hey, Brian, I'm getting a phone call right now. I'm just going to put it. Joel, hey, my brother's on the phone. How's it going, Joel?
Hey, good, you?
Good. I'm just like recording the podcast still. We're just about done, but congratulations on your win.
You just told me to leave in 45 minutes.
I thought I'd be done, but then Brian said I had to do this whole thing of like naming every single person who's won and lost. And now,
I thought I was running late. I felt bad.
okay, so are you at the bar? We got to celebrate.
I just left Mom's.
All right, so I'll see you as soon as Brian lets me, and we'll go celebrate our couple wins.
Okay. Is he coming too still?
Yeah, Brian's gonna come, but he's got an even longer way to go. And I don't know, Brian's probably gonna want to still name more teams after I'm gone. But we'll try our best to get there soon.
Okay, how long do you think you'll be?
Oh my God, I don't know. Hopefully not that
like
long.
2 minutes if you don't complain about it.
2 minutes. Brian says 2 minutes.
Okay.
Okay, see you soon.
Bye.
Bye. All right, where were we here? Okay.
Probert's plugs. Now the pressure's on. Okay. Probert's plugs fighting for the consolation prize in 2 leagues. Quote, I suck. I don't know what you're laughing at now.
Let's change the music to the winning music. Way to go! Do-do-do-do! These are the teams that won.
Oh my God. This could be so much better.
Team Mr. Svechnikov is in the last day of the championship finals.
Oh, yeah.
Up 8-4 currently.
You know, I actually I don't even think we should mention this team because they haven't won yet. Hit us up again next week. Like a lot of teams told us they were leading. It's like, that's great. I'm excited for you, but I'm not going to get involved in jinxing you.
So should I edit out the Team Mr. Svechnikov?
No, that's fine. Like, this is just a message. Like, I saw everybody who mentioned like, hey, I'm up, I'm winning. But we're not going to mention you. And we're not going to mention you also if you have like an R-rated name for your team.
But congratulations to those of you with R-rated names that won, but that we're not reading it.
Elon wishes more of you had R-rated names so that this would be over for him sooner. So yeah, there's a lot of teams that have almost won. We're not going to be involved. Congrats to Land Before Petey. You did it.
Oh, that's amazing. Good job. And then Ryan's squad destroyed his opponent by 80 points. Holy cow. Did you see Maddie in the cupful?
Oh, yeah.
It was tier 4, I think Liangby. He was against Brian M, and he was like up like 200 to 80 on Thursday. It was like the craziest demo. And this is the finals. It's not against some team that's like not paying attention. This is against a finalist. I've never seen anything like it. That was a crazy win. Congrats, Maddie. It's not his team name. I forget what it is.
Our final winner of today is straight into Belmont. Congrats to you for winning your league. We hope all of you are winning your leagues. And Please torture Elon by sending us your team names. If you've won or lost, look at our Twitter. I made a post. Reply to that post with your team name and result if you'd like us to argue about whether or not we should say your name at the end of the next episode. Thanks for listening, everyone.
Yeah, this has been so much fun. Thanks again. I think I already said everything before, right?
You did.
Oh, great. Well, thanks again. Go back and hear what I said before if you're still not convinced about becoming a patron, because it's a lot of fun. Go buy some HelloFresh boxes, and Brian, why don't you read the credits? We'll get out of here. Go to the bar. Celebrate.
Right. This episode of the Keeping Karlsson Fantasy Hockey Podcast was presented by Dabber Hockey and powered by our patrons, including our super supporters. I wish we had an echo effect on that. Tyler, Flash, Andrea, Tom, Kevin, Derek, David, Rob, and Patty. Thank you all so much. Thanks to all our team of Cupful coordinators, including our chief Cupful coordinator, Kevin Hebert. Thanks to Cupful champion Shams Benamor and you, Elon, Cupful Ultimate Champion, a pair of champions, sharing with you all the news they use to win their leagues. They're incredibly competitive leagues. GameDayTweets.com to find the links to all those Twitter accounts you need to follow. Shout out to Dave at the NHL Stream Scheme, who's still releasing content, put out an episode today. And thanks as always to Ben and Lewis for another successful season of Short Shifts. You can follow them through the off season, where they'll still be active on Twitter at Short Shifts KK. Logo art by Tier 1 competitor BrandonWeeb.com. Outro music by Pat Roach. This episode was researched with help from Dabber Hockey, Frozen Tools, Dabber Prospects, Natural Stat Trick, Evolving Hockey, Cap Friendly, The Athletic, HockeyGoalies.org, Hockey Reference, Hockey Viz, Hockey Database, Elite Prospects, NBC Sports Edge, and Yahoo.
Yeah, since you're giving everyone else like a little intro before you say their name, Pat Roach is the person who's currently watching my dog, Cody, while I'm in Ottawa. So another thing about Pat Roach. But okay, great job, Brian. So fun recording this episode with you. I'll see you in a few minutes. And everyone else listening, I don't know, maybe we'll throw out another show midweek if Ben or Lewis get the itch and want to do a short shift with me. But if not, for sure we'll be back for another fun episode next weekend to wrap up the whole season. Thanks for listening. And Brian, what should people do while they wait for the next Keeping Karlsson show to drop?
Keep doing what you can to make sure that fantasy hockey is for everyone.
Great show. So funny. I had fun.
You're such a dolt.
That was good. People in the chat are saying that was like a good moment.
What, the phone call?
Yeah.
Yeah, that was funny.
So what part's the dolt part? Oh, saying how Pat Roach is watching my dog? Well, you were
No.
like Brandon Weeb from
every
Tier
time
1.
you give me a hard time. Like we can't just read the names. Like every single time.
I didn't give you a hard time on the air. That was off the air. I was ready to read the names, but then you were like bringing the document and you were like, oh, but now I need to start editing the document. And so it was just like... Anyway, I just joking around. Oh, we shouldn't mention that Sean Corrali's on a hot streak.
Restart the episode.
By the way, Sean Corrali's on a hot...
Actually?
Great job as always. Okay, whatever. I won't put it in. That's for just the YouTube people. He's doing... Well, I guess, he's like the second line center on Columbus. So I guess not that... Anyways, Brian, all right. So this was fun. Sorry I was a dolt. I don't know what to tell you. But I thank everyone for listening. I had a really fun time.
So I'm coming to pick you up now?
No, I can meet you there. If we're going to Montana's, it's just down the street from me.
10 o'clock, man. Jeez.
It's on me, Brian. I appreciate it.
It should be on me, should it not?
No, it's on me because you're making the drive.
Congratulating you.
Just upload that file and then...
you want me to do that before I go?
Yeah, just to make sure you don't... Because then like when I walk home, I'll be able to start editing and I don't have to wait for you to drive home.
You'll start editing on your walk home.
No, like I'll walk home... And I'll start editing while you're still driving because it's like a 2-minute walk for me.
Here's what I'm gonna do. I'm gonna keep my computer from going to sleep for for an hour, and the show's gonna upload, and I'm gonna leave.
All right. Well, thanks, Adam. Sorry that you lost, but congrats on winning the Dynasty League. Wait, that's a different Adam, I think. I was confused. There's a lot of Adam Camp. Is that the Adam that's like Shane's co-manager?
I'm not in this league.
You're not in this conversation.
I don't know. I'm gonna go. I'm gonna leave.
Yeah, you gotta go. All right. See you, Brian. I'll just find that out quickly to make sure I didn't well, Shane could tell me. Shane from Taiwan. Adam from Taiwan Typhoons. Adam. Yeah, it is. It is the right Adam. I think so. I'm pretty sure it is. Congrats. Yeah. And who writes the? Okay. I'm an idiot. I gotta go. Bye, everyone. Thanks for watching. Bye.